has outgrown the facts. His mythology has outgrown the actual facts themselves. That's what we'll discuss. That's what's actually has got the Twitter sphere and has got the internet ablaze talking about MJ. So we'll get into that, talking about that a little bit later on in the show. But let's not waste any time. Before we do, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. I'm not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Ready to go on a Friday. It was nice as an NBA fan that the basketball stopped, but then the carousel started to churn again, and we started to get some news. There was some more news this morning, and more things are happening, and there's been trades and re-signings and coach hirings already happening, and then there's the my least popular sports opinion probably, that MJ stands are insanely annoying people. I cannot stand how much people idolize Michael Jordan, and I get it.
Wow.
He's the greatest of all time. I'm not even taking that away from him. I'm just saying you shouldn't idolize people like that. And the fact that they idolize one guy and then hate another guy who's right behind him, and like, LeBron James is not one of the 30 best players in NBA history, and Michael Jordan is better than most gods of most religions. He just is. It's a stated fact. There is no question. So I'm happy to see that there's at least some people coming out now. The annoying part is I've seen this come out, and then all the responses on Twitter are LeBron people that are the same way on the other side. And I'm like, no, you guys are missing the point.
Yeah, you're missing the point. We're about facts here. Yeah.
You're missing the point that the divide is not as wide as we're making it. It is not a chasm between Michael Jordan and the rest of anyone else who's ever touched a basketball. The chasm is not as wide. He's the best, but the chasm is not as wide as you're making it be. So I'm excited to see a little bit of that bringing him back to earth. It's nice to see.
Oh, they don't want to hear it though, Pat. They don't want to hear that.
No, they don't.
This is much like our political environment and the really in these days kind of the uber. You talking about tribalism that we all live in. We deal with it in politics, the tribalism. It's also we're very tribal in sports too. And the Michael Jordan tribe and the LeBron James tribe, they don't very much like to see reason and rationality when it comes to their arguments.
Yeah.
And I think we see that a lot. And we're starting to see it now too in this specific debate.
And then also, it's always blowing my mind. I'm like, there'll be a fan of some team, and then they're like also a Michael Jordan stan, and you just want to be like, but he beat y'all. Like, how can you be a Knicks fan and love Michael Jordan? Like, I don't get that. How can you be a Pacers fan and love Michael Jordan like that? You shouldn't be able to. Like, I respect Kobe. I don't like him. Never have, and never will, because I'm a Spurs fan, and he beat my Spurs too many times. So I'll never like Kobe. Respect him, tons of respect, but I'm never gonna like the guy because he beat my team too much. And that was like, that's what being a fan of a team is. And so I've never gotten that part of it where people are in love with Michael Jordan. Like, man, you just watch that Last Dance and he comes off that squeaky clean. He comes out of that squeaky clean. Seemed like he came out of that a little bit like a jerk. Like exactly like how LeBron is.
No, people did not think he was. They did not think he was an a-hole in that. People saw his very kind of a-hole tendencies, and they basically they ascribed it to that's his competitive sickness.
Yes, exactly.
They're attributing that to his competitive sickness, which it overwhelms MJ sometimes. He can't even really contain himself. He cannot be responsible for his actions at times because he's just so damn competitive.
No, he came back and played for the Wizards, which should have hurt his legacy. It didn't. But it should have. No. But he came back because he would basically show up at practice and be like, you guys aren't doing it right. And instead of being able to coach them to do it right or help them do it right, he's like, I'm just gonna get on the team. I'm just gonna be on the team.
He just started like working out with him and like practicing with him. It's like, yeah, but that's more about your ego and not about helping the team.
Yeah.
No, trust me. I love me some MJ too. So I am actually one of those fans who I have a team, but I also love me some MJ. I think that's most NBA fans because of what he meant.
You get the Rockets could have like another title or two without MJ, right?
Yeah, probably so. But I'm not the Rockets fan who's delusional and saying, "Oh man, if MJ, the Rockets would have still won 2 titles if MJ didn't
you take out the Lakers, the Spurs probably win another 1 or 2. That's why I say it's like I'll always have that. I respect, mad respect, but no love for it. No love at all for the guys who cost my team titles and cost me the enjoyment of having wins. I'll never go with that. Let me tell you someone who has never cost me an enjoyment. My co-host, he's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I can't wait to get to that discussion. We'll do that next hour and hit the mythology of MJ, because Tom Haberstroh wrote like a 6,000 word opus expose. I mean, he went into some deep dive details, watched some of the old MJ games, charted them and tracked them himself, him and another, I believe, stat keeper, and then found that there are some MJ stats that are a bit inflated.
Maybe a little bit inflated.
And it's more than a little bit, actually. Yeah,
I'm aware.
Being nice.
I'm aware.
Kind. I know, because I'm sure you've been eyeing this story for a while. So we'll get into that next hour and talk about that. But there's other NBA news, more pressing NBA news, not NBA news that's 30 years old. More pressing NBA news, as JJ Redick is now the newest head coach of the LA Lakers. So we'll start there. That's the big topic of conversation. Then we'll make our way to some of the other big topics of the day. But speaking of the big topics of the day, let's Patrick do us a service and hit us up with the Horn headline, so we are educated, informed, and updated with all the top stories of the day.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Lakers finally found their coach, hiring JJ Redick to a 4-year contract. The 39-year-old Redick finished a 15-year playing career in 2021, has been a broadcaster and podcast host in the years since. The hiring of a former player with no coaching experience as a head coach has mixed results, with some of the previous hires including Steve Nash, Derek Fisher, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, and more. The Lakers will now work to surround Redick with an experienced assistant coaching staff. Also in the NBA, the Thunder and Bulls completed a trade, with Chicago sending Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. The former 6th overall pick Giddey, who was only 21, struggled to find playing time during the playoffs on a Thunder team stacked with young talent, and the Bulls hope to utilize his playmaking ability more with their roster of offensive threats. The 30-year-old Caruso has made an all-defensive team the last 2 seasons and is thought of as one of the best role players in the league. With Caruso due a new contract after the season, the Thunder will have to decide if they value his contributions long-term. In Major League Baseball, the Astros picked up a 5-3 victory over the White Sox yesterday and won the series 2-1. Yordan Alvarez crushed a homer in the first inning and then contributed another RBI as part of the Astros' 7th-inning 4-run rally to regain the lead. Spencer Arguetti was pulled in the 5th inning after giving up 2 runs, but the bullpen was able to hold out and get the Astros a much-needed win. They will now head into a series with an Orioles team that holds the 2nd-best record in the American League. And the Rangers will begin a series with the Royals today, sending Nathan Eovaldi to the mound, trying to turn around a disappointing June for the club, who has gone 7-10 so far this month. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Let's start with one of those headlines. JJ Redick becoming the newest head coach of the LA Lakers. It's pretty wild. He's had a hell of a 5-year stretch here. JJ Redick, last 5 years, played with the Pelicans, of course. Then he launched his own media company, signed with the Mavs for a little while, launched a podcast, signed with ESPN, moved to ESPN's number 2 broadcast team, then moved to the number 1 broadcast team, and probably the most important decision he ever made in his basketball career. He launched a podcast with LeBron James, and being a friend of LeBron, it pays huge dividends. And that relationship, a lot of people believe that relationship is the reason that JJ Redick is now the latest head coach of the LA Lakers. Okay, so I'm assuming, Patrick, that won't be this podcast is over then. That podcast that he and LeBron had, if they keep that thing going, it's easily going to be the number 1 podcast in the world if they keep that thing going after he becomes the head coach of LeBron. But I doubt that is the case. You brought up a couple of names earlier that also are coaches who got jobs, maybe not as high profile as this one, but got jobs in the NBA as head coaches without head coaching experience since 2006. There have been 6 of those coaches who have had no head coaching experience and been hired as a head coach. But 2 of the names you mentioned, it was Steve Nash, by the way, Derek Fisher, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, and Vinny Del Negro,
yes,
also in that group. 2 of those, Steve Kerr, I believe, and Del Negro, at least they had some front office experience too before they became a
Yes.
head coach. So they were, and some other these guys, a couple of the, including Mark Jackson, and I think a couple of them they had a studio experience, much like JJ Redick. So they were calling games, but not necessarily coaching as an assistant or in the front office. So I guess if you want to say that maybe those other coaches who got head coaching jobs without the experience, maybe the ones who, at least one of them that's been really successful, Steve Kerr, he at least had front office experience with a team. You don't get any of that with JJ Redick. Among these coaches who have gotten these jobs without head coaching experience, where would you rank JJ Redick in the decision to make him the head coach and his resume, a very light one so far?
No, his resume's light. I think one of the things you see with JJ Redick that is probably one of the positives they saw, because you look through all this, and at the end of the day, you could have hired a guy that is, if you had experience or whatever else, like a James Borrego or a Monty Williams. These are guys who've been fired before. These are guys who have shown that they're not infallible. With JJ Redick, there is a huge ceiling. There's just also a huge floor. So it's a major decision, but you also realize you can fire him after a year or two. It's not going to be the end of the world. You're not paying him a huge amount of money, I'm sure, because the money wasn't discussed. So I'm sure the money's not crazy great to start off with. So you're able to sign a guy and just kind of go with it and figure out what he's going to do and see if it works or not. And maybe you hit a diamond in the rough, maybe it didn't, but you know he works really, really hard. You know he's doing the broadcast, you know he's doing the podcast, you know he's constantly working, constantly studying the game. He's watching game film, he's watching a lot of the league, so he has a better idea of scouting talent than some guys that you maybe pull out that don't necessarily have, that are doing the announcing, but they're not constantly doing the work. So I think there's a positive in that sense of, from a free agency standpoint and from a draft scouting standpoint, and just knowing the team and knowing the players in the league, he is pretty good at that. He's already got that kind of covered. So now it comes down to X's and O's, which he watches game film and breaks down X's and O's. So he can understand it, but can he figure out the solutions to problems, which is what you always say, Rod, that's a coach's job, is to be a solution and a problem solver. And that's the biggest question. Can he do that while managing talent, which is another one of the big pieces of a job of the coach in the NBA now, is can you manage talent and can you get players to listen to what you're saying for more than one or two seasons in a row? I think the hire of all the people you had left that were there, unless you were going to pull someone completely out of left field, unless there was a name that none of us had heard, I'm not angry with it. You're the Lakers. Make a splash. Go try and do it. This is a team that's right now a play-in team. Your odds of winning the title next year are pretty slim anyway. It's not like you could hire, even if you hired Dan Hurley, you'd have a better shot probably of winning next season, but their odds are still, it's a stacked Western Conference. We've talked about this. It's a stacked Western Conference. And LeBron James, as great as he is and as great as shape he is in, he played a lot of minutes last year to get this team to where it needed to be. Anthony Davis was relatively healthy last season. The odds of that happening again aren't great. So you get JJ Redick in, and hopefully he finds a way to scheme guys open more than what you had with Darvin Ham, who was going to be more of a grits coach and not necessarily someone like JJ Redick that, was a player that had to scheme himself open and had to find ways to get his own shot. They're going to hope he can find those shots for other players and help out a team like the Lakers.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Obviously, the assumption is LeBron James is all in on this hire, not only because they worked together during that podcast, but I mean, you're not going to make this move unless LeBron James is on board. LeBron, remember, reportedly also reached out to Dan Hurley when Dan Hurley was one of the finalists for the job and told him that, he would give him his full support, and that he obviously supported the move. They did not go with Dan Hurley. We know how that worked out, going with JJ Redick. So I guess my question is now for the Lakers with JJ Redick, how many veteran coaches do you put around JJ Redick? As a coach, are you trying to, as a front office, are you trying to develop him into being a great head coach? Because there'll be some growing pains where he'll learn on the job. I think the plan may be almost, I wanted the Texans to do something very similar when they hired DeMeco Ryans, who had never been a head coach. Just surround him with veteran coaches who can give him options and possible solutions to help solve all the different problems that arise. And I think if you can do that with a young, like you said, young, bright, innovative mind. He's intellectually curious. So you can tell that by the way he kind of dives into the X's and O's. So I agree with you. I think there is a lot of promise there, but to avoid the pitfalls, which are inevitable for any rookie coach, anybody who's a first year or anything, I would surround him with a ton of experience. Right? To me, I think the assistant coaching hires are going to be just as important, if not even more important, than the JJ Redick hire. Maybe more important, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and it's day-to-day stuff too. You need to have coaches who understand
logistics.
what the day-to-day logistics of getting through not just a practice, because he's been in practices, but after it. Okay, how are we dealing with, making sure we manage our time in the trainer's room, and how do we manage time on road trips, and how do we manage just all these little day-to-day issues that will come up along the way that JJ Redick didn't necessarily have to deal with before, and he was on the other side of. He didn't know that they were being dealt with by the coaching staff. So I think you want to have a few of those guys, and I think you probably want to have an ally or two of JJ Redick's on that staff as well, whether they're behind the bench or on the bench with him. I think you'd like to put a couple guys that are maybe younger guys, maybe guys who don't have a ton of coaching experience, but can be a JJ Redick ally, as opposed to him constantly having to look over his shoulder at some guys that maybe have previous head coaching experience, maybe have a little bit more experience, that may be looking at him saying, this should be my job. Why am I not getting this opportunity? And, I'm going to go in there and show that I need to be a head coach somewhere else, as opposed to really trying to make this work for JJ. I think you could find those. I know that I heard the rumor that he wanted to reach out to Rajon Rondo as somebody that he feels is a really good basketball mind. Yeah. But that would be another guy that you say, okay, that could be an ally for JJ on the sideline, but he wouldn't necessarily bring any more experience. And so when you brought the Texans example, it's a good example of, those guys all had previous coaching experience, but they were all doing the highest job they'd ever done. So maybe you can find some other assistants that are younger and hungry and bring them in to help out as well. And then bring in maybe one or two guys that, are a little bit older, have been around a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more stalwarts of the game to kind of keep their a little bit of, consistency in what most of these players are going to be used to going, week to week in the NBA, instead of it being such a shock of him kind of trying to come in and change the system so much.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. You want to try to avoid the coach with egos.
Yeah.
You almost want to go after a coach who's pretty much decided he's done being a head coach.
Yeah.
Like a veteran who's like, nah, I really don't have any aspirations of being a head coach. I'm pretty, I'm fine with being an assistant and obviously contributing. But you're right. I mean, that could be tricky to try to find the right mix of coach together, because you're right, there'll be some coaches that could be jealous, just straight up jealous, thinking, hey man, this young man, a privilege, got a job that I've been working my tail off for my entire career. And not that they'll be trying to sabotage or anything, but definitely not necessarily a positive influence on the coaching staff there. So I'm with you. I mean, that's going to be the challenge, I think, no question.
Yeah, and I think you have to throw in there as well the big one you want to find is a coach that can be a little bit more the disciplinarian and be a little bit more of the defensive minded guy. Though that coach, if you can find that guy who will help the defense and be able to be the hammer at points, I think that would help out JJ, because, good playing career, played for a long time, was not known for his defense. So he can understand how to do it and everything else, but it might be nice to have somebody in there to coach it a little bit more and try and build that out, because you're going to have a lot of young guys on this roster that need to do more defensively to funnel the ball to the right places, to be in the right spots, to not make it completely rely on Anthony Davis having to be the rim protector and be the stop ball, because at that point you're using him in the wrong way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what is his strength as a coach, right? Is he a great motivator? Some coaches are just great motivators. Some coaches are really good at, problem solving. Some coaches are good at being a tactician or strategist. Some guys are all about the scheme for him. And honestly, in the NBA, a lot of times, some guys are just great at managing egos. And which that's a lot of it. Hell, matter of fact, that might be half his damn job.
Oh, yeah.
It's just managing ego, especially as the Lakers head coach. So it's going to be interesting to see what his strength as a coach is. Like what immediately pops that, oh man, this guy's pretty good at this. And I think you're right. I think it may be linked to his intellectual curiosity. And people have been really impressed, obviously, when he breaks down X's and O's, when he talks about scheme and he talks about strategy. That's why he got it promoted onto the finals, the number one broadcast team for the finals. So he's done, I think, enough so people respect his basketball acumen, his basketball IQ, and maybe that is it. Maybe he's on the cutting edge of some of the more progressive strategies in basketball today, and maybe that's part of what his strength is. That's what I really can't wait to see, because they hired him. I mean, they started talking to him at the Combine, right? The Chicago Combine is reportedly where they started talking to him, and whatever they heard from him, including the reference, I'm sure, from LeBron James, they thought and you even said it, the way they offered Dan Hurley. It seems like that they weren't all in on Dan Hurley for whatever reason, and maybe that was more of a distraction or a decoy, if you will, for who they really wanted to go after, which was JJ Redick. And now it's a lot more palatable now that we're this close to the draft. And I think everybody at this point was saying, well, you got to hire somebody, get it done before the draft. We don't care who you hire. And JJ Redick's the guy. And it seems like he was the guy initially. Then the other names came up, and now we came full circle back to JJ.
Yeah, and
I think they wanted the whole time.
I think they do, and and there's part of it where it could work out great, and I think there's another part of it where it is a bit more of a a Jerry Jones hire, or to hire Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss. They've Jeannie Buss, of course, is in a relationship with Phil Jackson and everything, but I think there's parts of it where Phil Jackson wins titles, and everybody says, well, Phil wins the titles, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. And then there's been there was a very tumultuous relationship with Jerry West for a long time, that Jerry West got a lot of the credit, and they didn't necessarily like that he got all of the credit. And so I think Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss are very much on the scale of, well, if we make JJ Redick a star, then we made JJ Redick a star, and we helped build this team, and we can build all this, and it's us being in the forefront. And instead of hiring a Dan Hurley, where if you hire Dan Hurley, well, then he's going to get the credit if everything goes according to plan and goes well. So there's probably a little bit of that in there. I don't know how much of that is, but there's probably a little bit of that. We like to have somebody in here that is appreciative of the job and wants to come in here and, will work with us a little bit more, and we get to be in control and we're the bosses, than having to answer to somebody that we're paying so much money that they now get to kind of turn it around on us a little bit and hold us hostage. I think there's some of that where they didn't want to be in that position, especially knowing what they're about to go into in a post-LeBron Lakers world, and understanding where they have to go after that who they present as head coach is also going to matter when they have to start going back into free agency and when they're trying to lure the next big star, because that's always been what the Lakers do. When they're trying to lure that, who is going to be one of the main voices in that room? And if they feel JJ Redick may be somebody that a player will get along with more because he's had all these guys on his podcast, because he's had, a great relationship. He's played with a lot of these guys. I think that there's something more in that world too, where you can say this is a coach that we feel can help us in sales pitches in the post-LeBron era, bringing guys into this team to fill that void. There's plenty of positives in it, but it's an unknown. Anytime you hire a coach with no experience, you can go back and look at the records, and most of the guys are pretty okay. Some were really bad. And then you get a Steve Kerr, you get a Larry Bird. Doc Rivers turned out to be a better coach. He came in with no coaching experience. Jason Kidd has now turned into it several down the road. Steve Nash didn't even have a bad record. He just wasn't as well liked. So, if you look at the previous times that this has happened, the records it's very much mixed. And so there is no track record of this is a really bad idea, this is a really good idea. It's just each guy's its own individual experience.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It's definitely one of the thinnest resumes of those guys who have taken head coaching jobs without any head coaching experience. But you're right, in the NBA, it seems like you get those stories more. Remember when the Texans were going to hire like Josh McCown? Remember that rumor?
Yeah.
And then how people just lost it. And he actually was a coach, I think at like high school level or something like that. But people just lost it, even with the report that they were considering Josh McCown because of how little experience he had as a coach. So it definitely is something in the NBA that's a little bit more acceptable.
Yes.
Just because of the culture of the NBA than it is in some of the other sports. Because like I said, we've seen it, and we've seen it actually happen successfully in the NBA. I think I would have liked a little bit more either front office experience or coaching experience at the NBA level, but he's just been around the NBA. He's an NBA guy. He's been around the game so long, and that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why, because Doc Rivers is one of these people, right? He was like calling games when he got hired as a head coach, and we've seen that more and more. So if you just stay around the game, it seems like that's enough, at least credibility in NBA circles, to go, no, he's been around the game as a broadcaster, and like I said, even as a podcaster too. I guess these days you can throw the same thing out there, but it seems like that's enough credibility to just be in the NBA community long enough and not be an outsider after you stop playing, whether you were an assistant coach or whether you dabbled in a front office or whether now as a broadcaster. You just got to stick around the game, and then it seems like sooner or later that will give you enough, at least cred, for somebody to give you a shot, even if you don't have a lot of experience. So
no, and
it's more about the NBA coaching too.
Yeah, and we've seen that being an assistant coach first doesn't necessarily lead to being a head coach at any point. A lot of times that happens, and they go, "Oh no, he's a great assistant," and that's where the conversation ends. Like guys like Sam Cassell is a guy whose name comes up a lot in head coaching searches, but he never really gets past that level. And I think it's because he's kind of slid now to, it was too long after he played to where he went into assistant coaching, and then now it's just he's just an assistant coach. The people don't feel he has that flair anymore. Where JJ Redick is a fast riser.
Yep.
And so you could say, instead of putting him on assistant coach where he's got to toil for a couple of years, and now that fast riser dies, he is still a fast riser in the NBA community.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great way of putting it, because you're right. That's almost what it feels like. Because you're right about Sam Cassell. I've heard his name come up multiple times. There's got to be something out there that we don't know too. I know it's kind of like an Eric Bieniemy thing, where it's like maybe he doesn't interview well, or so there's something out there that the NBA owners and GMs that they don't necessarily love about Sam Cassell. And I feel like it's kind of like that, like Eric Bieniemy. He's like he's been an assistant long enough to prove himself. That's obvious. Why now does he feel like he's kind of stuck in purgatory?
Exactly.
He's kind of in the friend zone of coaches where he can't get a job, and yet you got guys getting fired after 1 year. And it's like, somebody give Sam Cassell a shot. That was good stuff there, Patrick. Okay, can I? You know what? We're gonna save the others. I want to get his Bill Simmons take on Bronny James. I'm sure you've already heard it, Patrick. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But I want to get into some Texas football conversation next. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. I saw a scouting report on Quinn Ewers from the 33rd. They're at a website that covers the NFL, 32 teams, the 33rd team. And one of the things that I've been telling you guys, I'm warning you guys about, that NFL scouts are going to start, echoing a very similar opinion and sentiment about Quinn Ewers, is how he handles pressure. Remember talking about this, right? Pressure to sack rate, how he handles pressure. This scouting report, it implies that he does not handle it well, and that NFL scouts want to see him handle pressure better. We'll read that report, and I'll tell you why that is such a concern. It's such a concern for NFL scouts about Quinn Ewers, and if it's something that we'll see him remedy this upcoming season. We'll talk about that and more when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming back right here on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Speaking of the traffic, traffic can be very annoying, of course, but traffic also is an indicator that your city is growing, and that's exactly what's happening in Austin, one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And as our city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends at Ironworkers Local Union 482. Many of the iconic landmarks we love in this city were created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks over at Ironworkers Local 482 don't just go to the office, they build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity, or you want a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 42. And right now it's the perfect time to do it. They're hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So right now it's the perfect time for you to become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. So go online and apply today at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation and go behind the burnt orange curtain. So I was looking at a scouting report from NFL Draft Study. They help out the 33rd, a website, do their scouting reports for prospects coming out of college, and they're starting to do quarterbacks now. They did Carson Beck a couple of like last week, and they're doing Quinn Ewers now. So I'll read you the excerpt here about the scouting report on Quinn Ewers. And remember earlier this year, I told you guys, I said scouts, they're going to want to see the way Quinn handles pressure. That's one of the things I've talked to a couple of scouts, and they're all kind of echoing the very same opinion that, oh man, they want to. And that's how you know that it's gotten around, because you talk to more than one scout, different teams, and they say the same thing. And it's like, well, they're not all talking to each other. They're either watching film, or that's the most of the time now it's about data science. Like that's the data that's out on. It's not even necessarily them watching film. They get a report, the data science about, pressure and sack rates and sack avoidance and pressure to sack percentage and that kind of stuff. And I said the pressure to sack numbers for Quinn are a bit eye popping. And a lot of NFL scouts, they're concerned that his inability to handle pressure well will translate to the NFL. And that right now, one of the big talking points about scouting quarterbacks these days. So that I brought up maybe last football season during the playoffs, because Patrick Mahomes was so great at it. Sack avoidance. Remember, I was like, sack avoidance has become the new term, the new it term for quarterbacks. Is sack avoidance a strength or a weakness for you as a quarterback? And for Quinn, they're not sure. They're not sure if it's a strength or a weakness, because he was really good at it one year and then not so good the next year. So this upcoming season will be big to the ultimate determining factor. Does he handle pressure well? or does he, flounder and you see him under duress? That's when you see Quinn struggle. That's when a lot of his mechanics break down, the footwork breaks down, is when he's under pressure. And then you get to what they call self sacks, pressure to sack rate. So here's the excerpt from the scouting report. He said in 2023, Ewers was considered one of the more unpredictable potential QB prospects in the 2024 class. A year later, not much has changed. Ewers has a strong pedigree and impressive skills, but his performance has been inconsistent. While he demonstrated the ability to excel with precise short and intermediate passes and avoid turnovers, he also encountered struggles, especially when his offensive line failed to give him adequate pass protection. And he showed limitations as a creator and a deep passer. We all know that. Second reaction plays, that's not really Quinn's. Improvisation, that's not Quinn's strength. Second reaction plays, when the play breaks down, that's not his strength. He's at his best when he's on schedule and he's a rhythm thrower. And when the offense is operating on schedule, on time, that's when he's at his best. It says Texas has lost a lot of talent in the 2024 NFL draft class. And if viewers can elevate a brand new supporting cast, Coach Steve Sarkisian will hear the jeers. It said if he can't elevate that class, he'll hear the jeers every time a pass hits the ground, as he did during this recent spring game. Though Ewers hasn't yet reached the level of success Burrow achieved in his senior season at LSU, the two share similarities. As pocket passers, Burrow is the only genuine pocket passer among the NFL's elite quarterbacks. No other NFL quarterback finds as much success staying stationary in the pocket as Burrow. However, with Quinn, his deep passing is objectively poor. It says here in 2023, he only completed 16 of 47 passes past 20 yards or more, and that's with one of the best and one of the fastest wide receiving corps in the country, Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. His 2022 marks weren't much better, completing 16 of 52 attempts. So he tends to overshoot deep attempts and fades onto his back foot, losing control of the ball's arc, and also sometimes giving it way too much hang time. He says Ewers struggles while under pressure, and his inability to connect on big plays downfield are troublesome. He took a sack while under pressure at an alarming rate. Remember I told you this, pressure to sack rate. They got him at 30.6%. That's a little higher than I've had him. That's a little higher than the Pro Football Focus number that I've shared with you guys too. I don't know how but everybody's got a different definition of pressure. Everybody's got the same definition of sack, but everybody's got a different definition of pressure. Whether that's a pressure or not, whether that's a quarterback hurry or not, these are things that are pretty much open for interpretation. Everybody's got a different interpretation of what a pressure is. So that's probably why that number's a little off or a little different. It says he's athletic but not quick. So he's dead in the water when a rusher comes free. Everything needs to move quicker for Ewers to take the next step. I talked about getting into your progressions faster, do your progressions faster. That'll help you deal with pressure better. He said everything needs to move quicker for him to take the next step. He'll take fewer pressures and sacks as he relies less on RPOs to reveal coverages. His reaction to rushers has to be more decisive, and knowing his hot read would lead to growth. Growth against pressure, including creating some off-platform throws, would be your biggest single point of improvement. Another year of stagnation would leave him in the day 2 mix, which is likely the feedback he heard before deciding to return to Texas. Told you. They're worried about how he handles pressure. They don't think he handles pressure really well. And here are the numbers that I've had about it. And I gave you guys these numbers months ago. Quinn's allowed pressure percentage in 2022, it was 14%, which is not bad at all. But in 2023, that number went to 22.4% in Quinn's allowed pressure percentage. And by the way, he's faced the same total pressures in 2022 and 23, same amount of total pressures. And yet the Quinn allowed pressure percentage spiked from 14 to 22. Pressure to sack rate for Quinn, overall 20.7%. Not bad. That's not bad at all. But it was 13.9% in 2022, over 25% of the pressures resulted in sacks in 2023. So over 25, that's from Pro Football Focus, over 25% pressure to sack rate. If you go look at it when Quinn Ewers sack rate versus pressure, Sports Info Solutions, and that's a little different than sack to pressure rate. But they got his sack rate versus pressure last year. They had it at 33%. Like I said, this number here from 33rd and NFL Draft Study, they have his pressure to sack rate at over 30%. So my point is, which doesn't matter which one of these statistics that you want to, believe in. they all show the same negative data point and trend. That Quinn just doesn't really handle pressure well, and he's got to work on that. That's one of the things. There's a couple other things too, but that's I think the main thing that NFL scouts want to see him improve on is how he handles pressure. Even going back to like the blitzes, right? Pressure and blitz are different. Blitz is when you send more than 4 defenders at the quarterback. 5 or more is considered a blitz. In blitz situations, like I said, pressure, you can get pressure with just 3 guys. You get pressure with just 1 guy. If they can't block him, as the Longhorn offensive line about Ndamukong Suh, you get pressure with just 1 dude. All right, pressure and blitzing are very different. Against the blitz, far less comfortable as well. He posts a passing grade nearly 27 points lower than his mark in non-blitz situations, according to Pro Football Focus. And by the way, that's going to be a concern because you know who blitzes a ton? Wink Martindale, who is the new defensive coordinator of the Michigan Wolverines. Remember, nobody in football arguably blitzes more than Wink Martindale. In the NFL, his last 2 years in the league with the Giants led the NFL in blitz rate in 2022. They were second in 2023. When he was the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, they never finished lower than 8th in blitz rate, and they led the NFL in his first 3 years in blitz rate. Oh, they coming. They coming. And when they not coming, they're going to send a simulated pressure, which looks, smells, sounds, walks, talks like a blitz, but it ain't a blitz. that is Wink Martindale in that show. So he's going to take, matter of fact, NFL scouts, they going to be not only clamoring to go to that game, number one, just because it's Michigan and Texas, it's going to be a great game, but all the NFL talent that's going to be on that field for Texas and for Michigan, and to see Quinn Ewers go up against an NFL defensive coordinator who loves to bring pressure in the blitz. And their big concern is, how does Quinn Ewers handle pressure in the blitz? The scouts, that is one they all got circled. All right, because if Quinn's improved versus the blitz and improved versus pressure, that's the game you're going to find out. If he hasn't, might be a long day. Might be a long day. So that's, like I said, you're going to be hearing it more and more. I told you guys months ago, that's what NFL scouts want to see. They want to see how he handles pressure, and they want to see him deal with it better. They would like to see him be able to master the pocket science, buy himself a little bit more time, extend the play, not by scrambling and, not by getting outside the pocket, because that's not where he's at his best, even though he can throw off platform, from many different angles. They want to see him work the pocket and be able to get deeper into his progressions by buying himself time with subtle movements in the pocket, being in sack avoidance, right? When we talked about Michael Penix was amazing. He was probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country at sack avoidance. One thing we don't think Quinn's good at is sack avoidance. It doesn't necessarily translate well for him, but that's okay. Not every quarterback's going to be great at sack avoidance, but he can get better at the way he handles pressure. So that's the number one thing they're going to want to see more of from Quinn, how he handles pressure. I think the number 2 thing is his deep ball, and they've talked about this. See, the mystery with Quinn is he's got the golden arm. He can make any throw on the football field, no doubt. He can touch every blade of grass. And between 10 to 19 yards, the intermediate, he's actually maybe the best quarterback in the country throwing intermediate passes. I'm not making that up. Like, literally, his Pro Football Focus grade intermediate range is at 93. Like, he is unbelievable from 10 to 19 yards. So as you go past that 19 yards, as they brought out the deep ball, that's when you start to see, some of the cracks in the armor. Because at times he'll fade back, and then he doesn't step into the deep throw. He believes he's got a golden arm, so he can make every throw, which he can. And he also has a tendency to put too much hang time on it instead of getting it there. And like I said, we know that he's not great at the deep ball, but when you had your receivers, Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, both run some of the fastest times at the combine, that's when NFL scouts went back to the tape and back to the film and back to the data, back to the science. And I'll give you an Xavier Worthy stat that's just mind-blowing. He had 9.2 career yards per target average on deep passes last year. That was the worst of any non-undrafted Power 5 wide receiver in the class. So the worst yards per target in the entire wide receiver class on deep balls. And he's the fastest wide receiver of all time. So NFL scouts went back to it. Oh, man, that must not be great. Even his off-target rates for Xavier Worthy, much higher than any of the other high-end wide receivers in the class. He had a almost 23% off-target rate. Hell, Ricky Pearsall was at 17%. Keon Coleman was at 16%. AD Mitchell was at 16%. You know what I mean? So they want to see him downfield 20 plus yards. They want to see the vertical shots be more accurate. By the way, he's already proven that. I've been looking at it for the last 2 years, and in the last like 7 games or so, his deep ball has improved. 43% completion percentage on his deep balls in the last 7 starts. It was 24% before that. Yards per attempt is now close to 15 yards per attempt on deep balls. It was less than 8 in his first 15 starts. Off target percentage was 44% off target percentage on deep balls in his first 15 starts. And his last 7 starts, now that number's down to 25%. So he's getting better. And last year, I think he completed like 33% of deep balls. He's getting better at completing those deep balls. So I'm not as concerned with that. I think that'll come. My concern is how he handles pressure. I think that is something that has really shown itself to be inconsistent at best for Quinn. And if it's bad this year, like it was last year, they're going to forget all about 2022 and just say, that's Quinn. Quinn doesn't handle pressure well. He's not a sack avoidance master at quarterback, and that's going to drop him down in the draft and may even drop him out of the first round. I know it sounds crazy, but it could if he doesn't handle. Because if he doesn't handle pressure well, he's not going to handle it well in the SEC. SEC blitzes more than the Big 12. You'll face more teams that blitz in the SEC. You're going to face Michigan. That's going to blitz a lot with Wink Martindale. You got to learn how to handle pressure well, and Sark is going to build in fail safes within the offense to help him. But there's only so much you can do for a quarterback handling pressure. That's going to be on Quinn to be able, like I said, to master the pocket science of buying time and be able to get deeper into his progressions. And I think it's, like I said, I think it's a combination. If he gets deeper into his progressions, but get quicker through his progressions as well. So you want to be, even Sark said, we got to work on him getting to the 3rd and the 4th read in the progression. And I think you got to work on him getting to it quicker. That's why the pressure is allowed to get there. And once Quinn sees the pressure, and I'll say he doesn't feel pressure. Quarterback's supposed to feel pressure. He sees it. He looks right at it. And when he looks at it, he is no longer looking downfield at his progressions. He is looking at that pressure. And that's why last year, what did he do when he looked at the pressure? He scrambled. He saw the pressure and was like, I get the hell out of here. I'm leaving, which is great. It's fine. As long as you don't take a negative play or have a turnover. But at one point, NFL scouts want to see you do what? Sit in the pocket. All right. Chaos all around you. And make NFL throws downfield. And one of the other knocks on him is he doesn't have enough straight drop back opportunities. Only a third of his pass attempts are straight drop back without play action, without RPO, without screens. Sark makes it easy on his quarterbacks. He has a very quarterback friendly offense. But when you are in those straight drop back situations, that's when teams know you're a predictable pass situation. I can blitz. I can come up with exotic pressure packages. So that's where scouts want to see him improve the most. In those situations, straight drop back, handling pressure and how he does it. And I think he's up to the task, but it will be a big question he's got to answer this season. All right, we come back. We'll answer the question about the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and we'll also learn what the musically themed day of the week is right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about Dr. Greg Eckert and his wonderful team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude because my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. And yes, you're talking to somebody who is taking that for granted at times. I've gone way too long without going to the dentist, but I don't worry about that anymore because I am so comfortable and so confident in Dr. Eckert and his team that no matter what the issue is, I've gone there to have all of my wisdom teeth removed. I've gone there for my fillings recently. I'm going there for cleaning, for just routine checkups, whatever the issue is. Doesn't matter what it is. Hopefully, it's not as serious as having all your wisdom teeth removed. Hopefully, it's something relatively routine. But no matter what it is, general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to make sure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. And what they specialize in, a lot of things they specialize in, but one of the things that I love, because that keeps people from going to the dentist, and it shouldn't, is dental anxiety. All right, a lot of people are freaked out about going to the dentist. I was a little freaked out about going to the dentist too. So, that may be one of the reasons you don't go enough. I can tell you how comfortable I was at Dr. Eckhart's office. Somebody who had a little bit of dental anxiety prior to meeting Dr. Yu. I actually fell asleep. First time ever in my life I had an experience. I fell asleep in the dental chair with Dr. Eckhart's team. It was like they had to wake me up. I was getting some feelings, had to wake me crazy. That's how comfortable they can make you. All right. So if you got dental anxiety, don't worry about that. I got that too. And they put me at ease no matter what the procedure is. But also something that they can do. My man, Dr. Yu, is always on the cutting edge of the technological advances in general dentistry. So what he can do right now, because of that intellectual curiosity, he can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants, no time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures first until they complete your permanent smile, but you're going to smile again and you're going to eat freely without pain or discomfort. So it's a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't freak out. If you have dentures already, don't freak out about that either. Just call Dr. Yu today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. Complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Yu wants to change your life for the better. So what are you waiting for? Give him a call, 512-345-3166, 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com.
Back in the Rodcast here on Friday. That would mean that this is a 512 Friday where we play music from artists right here in the Austin area that you can go see live around town this weekend. And this is Rival Waves. They're playing tonight at Courtyard ATX. If you want to go check them out, we'll be playing some 512 jams for you all show long here on the Rodcast, just like we do every 512 Friday here. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line open 512-447-3776 is the text line number.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. JJ Redick hired as the Lakers head coach, but I wanted to translate this over. We know it does not translate to the NFL. We know they're not first-time head coaches that have no coaching experience in the NFL. It's not really a thing that happens, but I thought it'd be fun to do this on a Friday and ask you guys for the poll, which NFL broadcaster would make the best head coach? Which one of these broadcasters? And so I'm going to go with the 5 main guys because we can go further into it if you want to throw us a name out there and give me a reason why this guy that's a little bit further down the totem pole. But because JJ Redick was the lead announcer, was calling the NBA Finals, we're going to list him in this. So your lead announcer for CBS is Tony Romo. Your lead announcer for Fox now is Tom Brady. Lead announcer for Sunday Night Football is Chris Collinsworth. Monday Night Football is Troy Aikman, and Thursday Night Football is Kirk Herbstreit. So those are the 5 that I'm going to start off with. There is your main guys that are going to be on every week on main television: Tony Romo, Tom Brady, Chris Collinsworth, Troy Aikman, and Kirk Herbstreit. Which one of those guys, if you had to hire one of them to be your new head coach for your football program, who would you hire?
Gotta hire Brady out of that group.
You really? Tom Brady
yeah.
would be one of my least I would hire because I think he's like MJ. I don't know if he's a coach. I know he knows the game.
MJ went to another team and MJ couldn't win. Tom Brady went to a team and won the first year.
He did.
First year.
I did.
You know how tough that is? That is tough in any sport to do, man. With the expectations on him, Tom Brady knows how to win. So he by the way, that was his offense. He brought the damn offense with him. So you literally have an offense. You got an offensive coordinator. That was Tom Brady's offense. He took it from New England to Tampa Bay and ran his offense. So you got an offense already because it's his offense. And like I said, he knows what it takes to win. He did it with 2 organizations. That just doesn't happen. So Tony Romo can't teach you how to win a damn game. He can't win a playoff game.
I'm not going to say Tony.
I'm a Romo-sexual. I love me some Tony Romo with all of my heart. Romo, I would not trust Romo to teach my organization how to win a playoff game. What it takes, please. No. Hell no.
No, I would go.
No. And by the way, I love Collinsworth, but those guys don't have enough. I don't know if they have the street cred to go from the booth.
No, I would say Chris
Collinsworth. And guys are like, hell yeah, Collinsworth, you the man. I'm gonna follow, baby. Yeah, no. Football's a game where you need men to follow you too, and you need to inspire men. I love Romo. Romo don't inspire nobody.
No, neither
is Collinsworth.
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't either. I would say Troy would be up there minus the concussions.
Troy's in there.
I would probably
second.
I think Tom Brady would be playing in 2 weeks if he was coaching. I don't think he could coach. I don't think there's any chance he could coach a quarterback without taking over and coaching and playing himself. I don't think he could.
I'll tell you why you're wrong. Because Tom Brady wasn't drafted high. The reason Michael Jordan is so bad at coaching and so bad at evaluating talent because he was so great.
Yeah.
And it's really tough for all-time great athletes to go to coaching. You want to know why? Because they've been an all-time great athlete their whole damn life. They can't relate to the jabroni who doesn't have great athleticism and skill and try to make them a better player. Teach them the fundamentals and the technique.
Yeah.
Teach them the strategy. They don't have that. Tom Brady's got that way. You know why? Because he was a 6th-round pick. He knows, like, okay, listen, you suck at these traits. You don't have any elite skills or traits. That's why I don't have any either. That's why I was drafted in the 6th round. But I can tell you, through grinding, through hard work, through film study, you can still become a great player. Michael Jordan couldn't teach that because he was frustrated every damn time he sees some scrub out there on the court and go, I can do better than that. Well, of course you can, MJ. You're one of the greatest athletes ever played the game. Tom Brady was not one of the greatest athletes ever played the game. Matter of fact, he wasn't even the greatest athlete to play the quarterback position in his own damn draft class. Like, he's one of the worst athletes, actually, to ever play the position and still prove himself to be a great football player. That, to me, translates better to coaching than I was a great athlete. I can't explain to you how to do what I did. Tom Brady can explain to you how to do what he did.
I do. I'll just say, I do not think he has a temperament to be a head coach. But I don't know if any of them do. But that'll be the question for you guys. And we'll see if Tom Brady runs away with this poll. We'll see if more people agree with that. I think Tom Brady is the type of guy who would, just from every comment he has made post-playing, where he has basically criticized everyone who plays now, and it says everybody's in it for themselves, and no one gets how it is. And just that attitude of, no, back in my day, even though it was 2 or 3 years ago, that attitude does not usually translate very well to working with young players. But maybe he could. And maybe he will at some point in his career. He'll decide that he wants to go and be part of coaching and that. I don't think he would, because there's less money in that than there is in broadcasting.
But he won't do that. he won't do it. He got too much pride for it. But I think Tom Brady. Listen, you're probably right about his message. Maybe it not resonating with young people. But you know why? Young people they'll make an exception for him because he's the GOAT.
He is the GOAT.
They'll make an exception for him. Same reason that Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. There's an exception made for them. Like, hey, I'll take less NIL money because I want to be with Nick Saban.
Yeah,
he'll get the same treatment, man, because he's the GOAT.
He is the GOAT.
Go.
He is the GOAT.
So I'll take Tom Brady on that one. To me, that's an easy topic for the big fat poll today. But my man Patrick will introduce it to you. So which broadcaster in the NFL do you see translating to the sideline better as a head coach? As we see that happen in the NBA a lot, actually. See it happen way more than we do in any other sport. All right, that's good stuff for the topic of the big fat poll today. We come back, we'll discuss the mythology. All right, the mythology of MJ, and it seems like right now MJ's legacy has come under criticism. It's come under a little bit of scrutiny. Nobody's questioning whether he's the GOAT. He's still the GOAT, but I think they're questioning some of the authenticity of some of the all-time great stats and achievements from MJ. We'll discuss that on the other side. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair Woo! 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick, the Idealionaire, my co-host, plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Kerry Hudson and Good Company, and they are playing Saturday at Saxon Pub.
I know what that is. Nice. Appreciate my man Patrick on the 512 Friday hooking us up. We'll get to this MJ story here in this segment. It's a really interesting one. And shout out to Tom Haberstroh for doing the deep dive research on this thing because I read the entire piece. I think it was like 6,000 words, but it was well worth it. It was a good piece. And I encourage anybody. It's over at Yahoo Sports. Go check it out for yourself, Tom Haberstroh. But we'll break it down and give you all the details in case you don't really feel like reading all that. And we'll discuss it here in this segment. Also, Rod's rant of the day. We're talking about sack avoidance, the way quarterbacks handle pressure. There's a great sourced study that was done of quarterbacks and their ability to avoid sacks. Sack avoidance in the NFL. It's becoming more of the thing. When you is better make sure that his sack avoidance numbers look pretty good when he's ready to become an NFL draft pick. But we'll talk about the NFL quarterbacks now and how they handle pressure and their sack avoidance rates and numbers. We'll tell you who in the NFL, you probably already know who this is the best at sack avoidance. All that we'll get into when we talk NFL in Rod's rant. Also, we'll get to a Rangers report that'll be coming up in the 9 o'clock hours for Rangers fans. You want to stick around for the Rangers report as well. And our off the record is going to be fantastic because I don't know why Matt Stafford's wife is talking so much, but she's talking a lot and she's revealing stuff that you ain't supposed to be telling people about the way you and your husband got together and the genesis of the relationship. It's way too much information.
That's why you don't go to LA. That's why you don't go to LA, man. That's
and you heard this, right? This was why did she have to reveal this little nugget to me? That I don't know why because all it did was make people now they're going to do research into the background of this couple. And now everybody wants to find out who the backup quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs was at the time. And I'll tell you, we'll explain to you why everybody wants to know who the backup quarterback was. But apparently Matt Stafford's wife told a story about Matt Stafford and the backup quarterback that has gained national notoriety for all the wrong reasons. These are not the stories you want your woman sharing with the world if you're Matt Stafford. But she's an oversharer. She definitely is an oversharer. She's on that podcast a lot. This is like the third time she said something that's going viral, right? Remember she said once she was talking about Matthew Stafford came home and complained about he couldn't relate to the kids, the younger players.
Yeah.
And basically how he felt old around the younger players and it was awkward because he can't relate to them. And she put that out there. It's like, don't be telling people that he told that's pillow talk. Yeah, don't be telling she told that. And she said something else too that kind of went viral that was a little bit off-putting. This one might be the most salacious of all the things she's revealed. So we'll get to that in off the record. I promise you. That'll be fun. And also, there's one of these stories on every team. I'm sorry. There's one of the story that she told, unfortunately, you ain't supposed to be telling. There's one of those stories on every team. I'm sorry, guys. It is. Y'all don't want to believe it, but on almost every team, pro, high school, college, this story happens. And matter of fact, I remember it happening on my teams. Several of my teams. You know what I mean? Sometimes Rod B was the focus of one of these salacious stories. We'll talk about even the Spurs had to deal with this. The Spurs. Yep. Exactly. Yep. The Spurs are the classiest organization in sports. Even they had to, if the Spurs got to deal with it, everybody deals with it. Everybody, it's not up for public consumption, but everybody has to deal with it.
The 90s Bulls had to deal with it in 2020.
That's a great point. That is a very point. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Yeah, I remember that. Didn't the Mavs have this back in the day with like Tony Braxton?
There's a story about it. It's not true.
Right?
It's an urban legend about it. Yes.
Yes, it is. It's an urban legend about like Tony Braxton and the Mavs back
and
in the
the
day.
Triple J Ranch.
Yeah, the Triple J's. That's what it was. And I want to say Tony Braxton denied it. She's the one that came out.
They pretty much all at some point denied it. Now
have they all denied it? Yes. So sometimes obviously truth is stranger than fiction, but sometimes it's just straight up fiction. This is not. This comes from the horse's mouth. That's why we'll discuss it. Okay, so we'll do that off the record. And we'll have Rod's rant coming up where we'll discuss sack avoidance. If we can't get to it in this segment, then we'll table it for next segment. First, let's get to the horn headlines, and then let's talk about the mythology of MJ, which, man, is so powerful that it can make people believe in things that are not true. That's how powerful the MJ mythology is, that even if people present it with facts, they prefer to believe the fiction over the facts. Isn't there a great line? You know what? Let's get to the Horn headlines first, and then we'll talk about that. Let's get to the Horn headlines. Get educated, updated, and informed. I know Patrick's got some hot takes about this as well. Let's get educated, informed, and updated on the top stories of the day, and then we'll talk about the mythology of one Michael Jordan.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Lakers finally found their coach, hiring J.J. Redick to a 4-year contract. The 39-year-old Redick finished a 15-year playing career in 2021 and has been a broadcaster and podcast host in the years since. The hiring of a former player with no coaching experience as a head coach has had mixed results with some of the previous hires, including Steve Nash, Derek Fisher, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, and more. The Lakers will now work to surround Redick with an experienced assistant coaching staff. Also in the NBA, the Thunder and Bulls completed a trade with Chicago sending Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. The former 6th overall pick Giddey, who was only 21, struggled to find playing time during the playoffs on a Thunder team stacked with young talent, and the Bulls hope to utilize his playmaking ability more with their roster of offensive threats. The 30-year-old Caruso has made an all-defensive team the last 2 seasons and is thought of as one of the best role players in the league. With Caruso due a new contract after the season, the Thunder will have to decide if they value his contributions long-term. In Major League Baseball, the Astros picked up a 5-3 victory over the White Sox yesterday and won the series 2-1. Yordan Alvarez crushed a homer in the first inning, then contributed another RBI as part of the Astros' 7th-inning 4-run rally to regain the lead. Spencer Arrighetti was pulled in the 5th inning after giving up 2 runs, but the bullpen was able to hold out and get the Astros a much-needed win. They will now head into a series with the Orioles team that holds the second-best record in the American League. And the Rangers will begin a series with the Royals today, sending Nathan Eovaldi to the mound, trying to turn around a disappointing June for the club, who has gone 7-10 so far this month. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Let's dive right into this Tom Haberstroh story. So Tom Haberstroh claimed that he did some research on MJ's iconic 87-88 season, where he became the first player to ever win the scoring title and defensive player of the year in the same season. And he went back and did some deep dive statistical analysis, right, and film analysis of this season, as much as he could have, because he said they don't have obviously all the games available from way back then. And he found discrepancies in the actual stats that were given for MJ that year, and in the actual, like you said, breakdown analysis that he himself analyzed in the film study, and looking at the different box scores and comparing the box scores and the scorekeeper's notes. He did a lot of research here. So here's what he found. He said there's considerable evidence, both statistically and with corroborating video, that suggests that MJ's Defensive Player of the Year award may not have been as valid as folks thought at the time. Now, he goes into a kind of deep dive here, but essentially here's the gist of it. In 1986-87, MJ's 3rd season in the league, he was upset, publicly making it known that he believes he's being disrespected because he was left off the all-defensive team, even though he became the first player in NBA history to register at least 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season. So he was irritated. And he was letting the media know about this, and he brought it up several times, even like a Sports Illustrated article. He said, Michael Cooper is great at ball denial, but check his other stats. This league gives defensive awards on reputation. It just teased me off. And so then they fast forward to the 87-88 season, which is the epic season where he wins scoring title and defensive player of the year. And basically here it said by the end of that season, he led the league with 259 steals. That topped the leaderboard. He also led all guards with 131 blocks. The next highest total for a guard was, I think, Alvin Robertson of San Antonio with 69. He had 131 blocks that year. At the end of the season, he was credited on average with 3.2 steals per game, 1.6 blocks per game. Of course, those kind of eye-popping numbers will get you Defensive Player of the Year. And it was his first Defensive Player of the Year award. And for almost 4 decades, nobody's been able, guard like that has been able to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's a big man award for the most part. And you're definitely not going to win a scoring title and Defensive Player of the Year in the same year. Obviously talking about how rare that feat was. So Alex Rucker, remember this name, because he's a former NBA stat keeper. He's currently the CEO of a boys and girls club actually in Texas. So I'm sure he'll probably try to get on the show if we want to. But he was once a top executive with the 76ers in 2020. Before that, he was a former stat keeper with the Vancouver Grizzlies. and he was an employee during their inaugural season 95-96. In February, Rucker told Tom Haberstroh that he was among a number of home scorekeepers in the 90s. So they would basically, for home games, they would chart all the stats and everything. And he also told, is a great podcast called Pablo Torre Finds Out. And you probably have seen it, Patrick. They do a lot of NBA stuff. And there was an interview with this guy, Rucker, and he explained that in his view, inflating certain box score statistics for the home team was actually common practice in the 90s.
It was common practice for a long time.
So, all right, so there you go. And he says
the stories about Will Chamberlain there is lots of people that talk about those, and they're like, no, there's just no video evidence of it. But a lot of those are not true.
Yes, so he said that he actually wanted to approach this position with as much integrity and honesty as possible and accuracy as possible. But he was saying he was influenced by other older veteran scorekeepers. According to Rucker, the scorekeepers told him in no uncertain terms that basically if you see something that looks like an assist and it's John Stockton to Karl Malone, it's an assist. Rucker soon realizes what was expected. In Rucker's view, it was inferred that part of the scorekeeper's job was to give hometown stars star treatment. He said, I left there clearly understanding that, yes, we are supposed to present the most accurate representation that we can, but the NBA is also an entertainment business. And he said, it's up to us in very small part as the statisticians to support or reinforce stars and excitement and fun. And that message was definitely reinforced internally within the Grizzlies, he said. So accordingly, he started, fudging the stats a little bit. Like if it was a half a block, it's a full block.
Yeah.
Or if it, a guy just tipped a pass and then it can't, that's a steal. Pass, that's a steal. We're gonna count that. And it's just it's just a little fudging of the stats, little by little, but that adds up over an 82 game season. So basically you have someone who is on the record saying, yes, we did in the 80s or in the 90s, excuse me. We did give star players star treatment when it came to stats. And how about this? So we said it wasn't just the Vancouver Grizzlies, and because of these home scorekeepers, home stats were a lot more inflated than road stats. And that's kind of where this whole thing starts. And it says league-wide in the 80s and 90s, in the 80s, home teams annually registered about 800 more blocks and about 450 more steals than the road team league-wide. That's per Basketball Reference. It said over time, those disparities begin to even out in the Adam Silver era, which is the technically advanced era they were in, technologically advanced era they were in. He said that the Homer effect on blocks and steals has almost disappeared. Just 135 more blocks at home than on the road, and a measly 13 more steals league-wide at home than on the road. So this is something that was obviously more prevalent in the 90s as opposed to current day. So it says, so according to a league office, it says here, the NBA has used modern technology to apply real-time auditing of stats now, so they don't worry about that. That's since 2018. And this brings us to the MJ era and back to that 1987-88 season. And it says, breaking out the numbers, it says they found that Jordan averaged a mind-boggling 4 steals and 2.1 blocks at home during that season. But on the road, those numbers shrunk from 4 steals to 2.1 steals, and from 2.1 blocks at home to 0.2 blocks. You're almost cutting them in half. And it said, put simply, Jordan steals and blocks nearly doubled at home compared to on the road. If they looked at it from a per 36-minute angle and looked at it from that prism, it said Jordan's combined blocks and steals stocks were a whopping 82% higher at home than on the road. And it also points out here that dating back to the 82-83 season, when the award was actually established, Defensive Player of the Year award, Jordan's home versus away disparity in combined blocks and steals represents the largest disparity of any Defensive Player of the Year award in NBA history for that 87-88 season. No other instance in the award's history has a player shown a disparity that touched 160%, except for Jordan's 87-88 season, which clocked 182% disparity. And according to stathead.com, Jordan posted 165 steals at home, by far the most in the NBA, compared to just 94 on the road. That was tied for 4th. The gap of 71 steals blew away the competition, with the next largest gap among the top 15 league leaders in steals being 47. So Jordan finished with the most steals at 259, past Alvin Robinson of the Spurs at 243. So if you don't give Jordan them extra steals, he doesn't win a Defensive Player of the Year. It probably goes to Alvin Robinson. And another stat, he says Jordan's 84 blocks at home. It ranked 8th most in the league, a highly unusual place to find a guard. On the road, though, his total of 47 blocks fell all the way down to 20, or tied for 21st, which is usually where you find guards in terms of where they're ranked statistically in the blocks category. I mean, it's just pretty damning and very thorough, Patrick, when it talks about it. It also says that approximately 30% of Jordan's steals and blocks from that 87-88 season, if you're obviously tracking them by today's accuracy standards, is that 30% of his steals and blocks would disappear from the record. Gone.
Yeah.
Period. Wow. Mind blowing.
No, it is. It's not hugely surprising. It's surprising at the numbers they did it, but it's one of those things of, during that era, you have to remember, because I remember I was watching games back then. Not every game was on. I know they were on WGN, so they had more games on TV than others, but this is also in the 80s before they became the 90s Bulls and were winning championships and were really on all the time because they were a dynasty at that point. This is before they've won a title.
Yeah, you're right.
And so this is pre-dynasty Bulls. This is, a Bulls team that was probably on TV some, but even if you're on TV, there isn't a box score that keeps popping up on the TV because they don't have necessarily the people that are doing that. And then they just can pop the score and the timer up, a couple times during a segment. Right. Yeah, so you don't even see that. So what you would do is you go to the newspaper the next day and you would look up the box scores in the newspaper the next day. There wasn't the internet, so you couldn't keep along, real time with the stats. So you didn't know. You couldn't watch real time and go, he's already had 6 steals. It's the first quarter. How's he already got 6 steals? Yeah. So there wasn't any of that full-time stats that there is now where everything's tracked by time more and everything. You just, they would mark stuff off. So it was a lot easier to cheat it than it is now, because now everything is done by 6 different statisticians. It's done on a computer screen that we can all see at the same time. So if something pops up that doesn't look right, you immediately know it doesn't look right. And you go, why'd they credit him with that rebound? Like, he didn't get that rebound. Why'd they credit him with it? And you'll see it as in real time. It'll just pop up. So there's more of that kind of the game. So it makes sense. And again, Michael wasn't the only guy doing this, but this is when we get into the Jordan, LeBron, and that, Jordan would never do what LeBron does and go out and pull for himself and push. He did, but Jordan had a lot of other people that did it for him because social media wasn't a thing. So he couldn't go online and clips didn't go viral. There's a story about how Jordan's close to like the stat keeper from the Bulls, and he literally would go over to him game by game, like, "Hey, am I close to that record? What's going on, man?" Like he had a close relationship with that guy. But it's also like, who is Jordan really close friends with? Ahmad Rashad, who is one of the biggest voices of that period of NBA knowledge, telling everybody. And so if Ahmad Rashad came on every day and told you that Michael Jordan's the greatest and here's what the greatest doing, you believe him. So Ahmad Rashad, I loved watching him when I was growing up. So I get that concept of that he didn't do it, but he did. He just did it, a lot of it behind the scenes. He had a lot of people fighting for him behind the scenes because they understood that, if you make a star, everybody's happy. The team makes more money, everybody's happier on the team, and Michael Jordan's happier, stars happier. So it's always been that way. Ultra competitive people are going to want to win everything. And it just so happens that LeBron lives in an era where he can come off really, really poorly. And I agree, he comes off really, really poorly a lot. That when he's saying, I deserve this and I should have done that and this should be mine. I get that. Or I don't get respect. And you go, everyone respects you. But Michael was the same way. They're more similar in that sense than people ever seem to think they are. People seem to think one of them is altruistic and great and never is so humble, and the other one isn't. Or one of them is maybe not humble, but is deservedly should be allowed to be this loudmouth. And it blows my mind every time when people get on one side or the other. They're both just really, really great players. And it's great that I've been able to watch both of them play. I've seen both of them play live multiple times. I've covered both of them before. That's awesome to me. And so I find it always a positive thing. But this article it's fun in the fact of poking holes into these worlds of guys. Don't over glorify the past at some points. Sometimes these things where were a little bit more inflated than you may want them to believe. And as much as we can say they were inflated for Jordan, they just went over the top with it. But again, Alvin Robertson probably had some favorable numbers at home as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, so
it probably evens out in the end because everybody was doing it.
It doesn't even out.
It's like the steroid era.
Exactly. I don't think it evens out. I think it gets way closer. So I bet that Alvin Robinson's numbers were up, not 180% or 60. What did you say? 82% or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Inflated at home. His numbers were probably inflated 30-40% at home. So
he wasn't MJ status star.
Yeah.
He was just a
and so player, they were inflated. So at the end of the day, it's not like it was it's like a lot of things in sports. They were cheating, so was everybody else. And it didn't actually affect the game, it just affected the awards. So at the end of the day, who really cares that much about it? I get the players who didn't win the awards, but it didn't affect the integrity of the game. So it's the best kind of cheating.
That's true. You're right. That's a good point about that. I agree with that. And I think more so what it's affecting is now in retrospect, decades later, is this ongoing discussion we've had about MJ as the GOAT. And now that LeBron, now you finally have somebody who can even be respected enough to be in the conversation, to have a debate about who's the GOAT. This now will affect that conversation, that narrative, that discourse happening, which I think has been happening for the last 8 years now. We've been talking about MJ and LeBron. And to your point about how everybody was doing it, this was also a debate. It says in his article, basically Wilt Chamberlain's fan club and Wilt Chamberlain's people and Bill Russell's fan club and his people, they were actually debating this back in the day. Because they claimed that Bill Russell and both Wilt Chamberlain were benefiting from inflated home numbers. It says here that they traded accusations that the opposing scorekeeper padded the stats to help their big men. Looking back, the numbers are indeed startling. Between them, Russell and Chamberlain registered 26 games with 40-plus rebounds. None of the 26 games were tabulated on the road. None of them. They were all at home when they got these 40-plus rebound games. They were all at home. And it said it also went on to talk about Nick Van Exel, some other examples. Like Nick Van Exel apparently had that 23 assist game, and they broke it down and looked at it. And I believe one of the data scientists said Nick Van Exel shouldn't have had more than 17 assists. You can make an argument for him deserving only 15 assists, but they had him down as that epic 23 assist game. Yeah. Now these are games you can watch on YouTube and actually now track them yourself. And he also pointed out Shaq's 15 block game of 1993 probably should have been more like 10 blocks. Yeah. He broke down Toronto Raptors record-breaking 23 block night of 2001. They said it should have been more like 17.
Yeah. I also, none of these guys thought games would be readily available to watch over and over again. At the time, it was like, no, it's airing, and that's
done.
It's done.
Nobody will ever watch it again.
It's done. No one's ever going to watch this again. No, I get it.
It's like,
it just goes, don't idolize celebrities, don't idolize athletes, don't idolize politicians as infallible and deities. Everyone's going to have their issues. So when you get on and I love the game of basketball. That's why I enjoy watching. I'll enjoy watching MJ games. I'll enjoy watching LeBron games. Once you get into the someone has to be better and the idolization and the statistical review of it all, that's where it loses some of the fun for me. Stats are a fun thing to look at, but when you're judging a player, I'm always been much more of an eye test guy and a what you watch. And so I think stats are great for that, but you understand that stats a lot of times can come with other things. And it's fun to see that somebody has gone through the effort to point it out now and show you. And if it was happening for MJ, it's probably happening with a lot of other people. So you just have to take it all with a grain of salt and understand it. It is what it is.
The NBA is so blatant, and they basically don't give a damn about this or the accuracy of these statistics. They still have a MJ Michael Jordan 10 steal, like a 10 steal highlight video. He had a 10 steals in a game. They still have that highlight video like up on their website. And on the comments, there are several people who've already tracked and said, dude, they only count 6 steals. There are not 10 steals in this game by MJ, and yet you guys literally have it up there as a 10 steal game. So it is one of those things where, truth sometimes is stranger than fiction. In this case, it is, because the truth is that they inflated these numbers because they wanted a superstar like Michael Jordan to be crowned a little bit earlier. It was going to happen anyway for MJ, but I think they just wanted it to happen right then and there, right after that 86, 87 season. And we know David Stern was all about, hey, the star power is going to drive our sport. And they found here, I think like you're saying, Patrick, it's also that great. It reminds me of that great saying. Hope I get it right. Hope I don't butcher it. From, I believe it was the man who shot Liberty Vance. Is the old Western where they say, when legend becomes fact, print the legend.
Yeah.
The legend's always more interesting. The legend's always better.
And
when the legend becomes fact, just print the legend, and that's essentially what we're watching here. Print the legend.
And I'll say this: someone texts you can't inflate points. You can. You could before there was video, and high school students still do it constantly. So you can very much. You can inflate anything if there's no video evidence. Anything's honesty. Hey, that's the way it is, man. Anything's the truth if you say it is. So it still happens. Go look up, and I guarantee if you go on certain high schools' pages of what their team did, and you tabulate how many points everybody says they averages, you'd be like, you're scoring 170 a game? Y'all's team was scoring 170 a game. Something tells me some of y'all are lying.
Some of y'all are. That's a great point too. Yeah, high school stats happens all the time just because they're trying to get these guys some recognition and they're trying to get them scholarships and stuff. So
35,000 rushing yards last year. Come on, man.
That's a great point there. You're right about that. I've thought about that, but you're right. It's probably still happening just at the lower level.
Yeah, it's not on video. Then who cares at the end of the day? They'll just say, well, this was when it really happened.
Yeah. No, it's just, like I said, it's good because it adds to, I think, more about the discussion, the discourse we've had about MJ and LeBron. Matter of fact, LeBron talked about this. We'll play that sound later. But LeBron talked about how, one of the goals that he's had for himself is to surpass MJ and win that Defensive Player of the Year award.
Yeah, it's too late now,
man. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if he's going to win it now, but at one point in his career, he said that was one of his goals, and it never worked out for LeBron.
Nope, and he got a job one year, but that was also because I don't think they didn't do this. They didn't, he didn't have the appeal.
Yeah.
It was when he was in Miami, and I don't think Pat Riley really cared about campaigning for him. And so he had Spoelstra as a coach who wasn't the campaigner, didn't have the reputation, and Pat Riley didn't care about campaigning for him because Pat Riley is not a personal awards guy. So
championships.
And so if he was on Cavs, he probably would have won it that year. If he was on the Lakers, he would have won it that year. He got 100% job that year. I think it was like 12-13. Marc Gasol won. Yeah. Marc Gasol didn't deserve it.
And the crazy part is, I think even people who are on the MJ side of the MJ LeBron debate will acknowledge that LeBron is a better defender in their minds.
Yeah, I mean, they're both.
Just because just because he matches up with more.
Yeah, he's 4 inches. He's like
physical freak.
4 inches taller than him. And exactly. And a physical freak that Michael Jordan was super athletic, but not a physical freak like LeBron is.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good conversation, though. I'm glad that Tom Haberstroh threw that out there. There are some folks that still refuse to even acknowledge it and let it. And it shouldn't change your opinion about MJ. Of course, MJ is still the GOAT, but you should be willing to accept the fact that MJ's mythology has separated him from the rest of the all-time greats in the NBA, and maybe the divide shouldn't be as wide. Maybe that chasm shouldn't be as wide between MJ and the rest of the league. Because maybe some of those numbers are a little bit inflated. All right, good stuff there. We come back, we'll get into Rod's rant of the day. That felt like a rant. We'll get into Rod's rant of the day. We'll talk about sack avoidance in the NFL. What a new age term has done to change the entire evaluation and scouting of the quarterback position. We'll get into that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Austin is a great city. Yes, even with the traffic, it's still one of the best cities in the country. But hey, traffic's an indicator that the city is growing and thriving, actually. And as our city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local 482. Many of the iconic landmarks we love in this city were actually created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. And right now, they're hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. And you can become one of these lucky folks right now. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So if you're thinking about a refreshing career change or an exciting employment opportunity, or maybe you want a new challenge or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482. And right now, it's the perfect time for you to do it. If you go online today, you can apply at ironworkers482.org. And it's a really simple process. And they got a lot of different options, a lot of different opportunities available to you. Just go online and see what fits you best at ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to Rod's Rap of the Day. One of the new popular terms in scouting, I've talked about it a little bit, sack avoidance. They don't really have a stat and a metric to define it just yet, so they're using different advanced metrics, using different analytical devices to try to compile a lot of different metrics and stats to at least give you some type of framework to determine sack avoidance, who's good at it. And recently, like I said, pressure to sack percentage has been one of them. Sacks allowed, what they call self pressures and self sacks is another stat that throws out there that they believe can give you a better projection of a better evaluation of how a player handles pressure. So if you look at own pressure is allowed. That's pressure is allowed by that specific quarterback. And then own sacks allowed. They self sacks essentially. So self pressures and self sacks. If you look at just on sacks allowed per on pressure. So we're looking at self sacks allowed per self pressures. So how often a quarterback is sacked based on the pressure that is allowed because of that quarterback, his decision. So it's not always on the O-line. These are only pressures and sacks because of attributed to the quarterback. If you just look at those specific stats attributed to the QB, not the O-line, Patrick Mahomes is your best sack avoidance quarterback in the NFL. 12.7% of his self sacks were allowed based on pressure. All right. So that's, like I said, attributed to him based on pressure, attributed to him as the quarterback. So a self sack attributed to him as the quarterback because of pressure that he allowed. 12.7%. Actually, Justin Herbert is second on this list, 16.7%. Then Joe Flacco, apparently really good last year in sack avoidance at 20%. Let's go look at Dak Prescott and go look at CJ Stroud here. They're actually toward the bottom. You look at sack avoidance based on self sacks and allowed quarterback pressure. All right, combining those. CJ Stroud is sixth worst actually on this list. 42% of his on self sacks due to quarterback pressure allowed. Brock Purdy is right above him at 42%. So at least you're in decent company there. Dak Prescott is probably the eighth worst on here. He's at 41.6%. Like I said, it's not necessarily I don't necessarily think it is a terrible thing not to have like this as a elite trait as a quarterback, as long as you don't have kind of what Justin Fields, I believe he's one of the worst in this category. As long as your the self sacks aren't damaging, because Joe Burrow actually takes a lot of sacks too. But as long as remember he was the most sacked quarterback to ever play in the Super Bowl. But as long as your self sacks aren't always on third down, and as long as you can, as a player, if they're on an early down, if you can end up converting that set of downs, even though you took a sack on that series or on that drive, that also I think will mitigate some of the damage that's done. Some guys take a sack and then boom, that kills the entire drive. There are some players, they may take a sack, doesn't kill the entire drive because they're better at second and long, they're better at third and long, they're better in straight drop back situations. So it doesn't always necessarily, it's not apples to apples in terms of that comparison. But just giving you, I've always said that I think Patrick Mahomes is the best sack avoidance quarterback in the NFL. I think Josh Allen is probably second in my opinion. And on this list, Josh Allen is fifth. He's behind he's behind Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Flacco, Kyler Murray, and Josh Allen. Kyler Murray, and then there's Josh Allen. So he's fifth on this list behind Kyler Murray. But to me, like I said, there is no specific stat that says, oh, this is the sack avoidance stat. You're taking different metrics and looking at those to determine how a quarterback handles pressure. So another one they look at is pressure to sack percentage. I've talked about this. And the thing about pressure to sack rate that's so interesting is that what they found is that your college pressure to sack rate and your NFL pressure to sack rate are pretty similar. That most of the time it translates from the college game to this is what was hurting my man Quinn Ewers, because Quinn Ewers' pressure to sack number last year was really high. It was over 25%. If you look at his pressure to sack rate, you don't need that translating to the NFL. And that's what they don't want, because they've seen, like Patrick Mahomes, I'll give you Patrick Mahomes' college pressure to sack percentage was 11.3. The NFL up until last year, it was 11.1 in his NFL career. It's pretty damn good. Josh Allen was at 16.3% in college, 13.3% in the NFL. A little bit of a change, but not too drastically different. Look at Jared Goff. He's at 15.2% pressure to sack rate in college, 14.7% in the NFL. You get it. Dak Prescott, 16.7% in college, 16.5% in the NFL. There are some that are drastically different. There are exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, they think it tracks and translates from college to the NFL, your pressure to sack rate. So looking at that as a stat to determine sack avoidance and your level of skill in sack avoidance, they have Josh Allen with the best pressure to sack percentage last season in the NFL. He's at 9.9%. That's really, really good. And to give you perspective on Quinn, his 25% would be fourth worst on this list. If his 25% pressure to sack rate translates to the NFL, it'd be fourth worst on this list. He'd be down there with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is really bad. Daniel Jones is at 39%. So he'd be down there with Desmond Ridder, Bryce Young. Tua's around 24%. Right, trying to get the ball out of hands, Tua's hands fast. He's got the quickest time to throw in the NFL because the scheme is RPO based. Get the ball out of his hands quickly. So that's why you want to see Quinn clean up. If Quinn gets back to his numbers from his 2022 year instead of the 2023 year, you're talking about his pressure to sack rate being 13.9%. 13.9% would put him. It'd put him top 6 on this list. The only quarterbacks that will be ahead of him at 13.2% would be Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Flacco, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff. That'd be it. He'd be in the top 5. Do you see why NFL scouts need to know who the real Quinn Ewers is? Are you top 5 in the NFL in sack avoidance, or are you bottom 5 in the NFL sack avoidance? We don't know. And pressure to sack rate, we need to figure out this year. That's why they're like, it's a lot to be determined about his overall evaluation this upcoming season. So in terms of pressure to like sack avoidance, is either pressure to sack percentages you're looking at, or you're looking at self sacks and self pressures. And either way, Patrick Mahomes, he's number 2 in pressure to sack rate. He's number 1 in self sacks allowed per self pressure. So to me, he's the best sack avoidance quarterback in the league. And like I said, depending on the metric you're looking at, I think some quarterbacks will be worse than others. Where's Dak in pressure to sack rate? I'll find it for you here in just a second. Here is Dak. Dak Prescott is at 18.6%. That's right in the middle. He's right there in the average. CJ Stroud on this list, he is right there close to the average too. I mean, he is 19.5%. So it's not terrible, but it's not elite or great. And he could be better because he had the most injured O-line in the league last year. All right, so there you go. That is some metrics that'll basically give you a better idea, more clarity on sack avoidance. Still not a stat just yet. Some clever mofo out there is going to figure out an exact stat for sack avoidance. But right now, all we have are these different metrics, and the metrics tell me Patrick Mahomes is the best at it. My eye test tells me that too. I was telling you guys that last year in the playoffs, like he's the best sack avoidance quarterback I've ever seen in my life. And I think these numbers pretty much back that up. All right, we come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn.
I want to tell you guys about our friends at Texan Windows. They're your new and replacement window experts here in Central Texas. You can discover affordable windows and sliding glass doors. If you're looking to up your curb appeal of your home for summer, you want to get into a better looking window, you can change the color, change the operation of the windows, maybe put a great picture windows in. Those are great for looking out on the yard, looking out on a beautiful backyard, or you want to remove the grids from your glass. Maybe that's old school to you. You want to look a little bit more new school, fit your style. That's what Texan Windows can do for you, but it's not just about the looks.
Oh, not just about the looks at all. That's one of the great reasons you need to reach out to Texan Windows for new windows. But I'm a ball on the budget, and I love to save money. All right, as much as I can. I got an 8-month-old in the house, so they're very expensive. So wherever I can save money, I'm trying to save every little bit of it. And you can do that with brand new energy efficient windows from Texan Windows. Replacement windows can help with energy efficiency that will save you money on your annual energy bills. All the windows from Texan Windows, whether you're talking about thermal break aluminum windows. You're talking about replacement windows, vinyl windows, wood windows, whatever windows they have, they all come with the same technology. Argon filled double pane low E glass that'll keep your house cool during those hot Texas summer days, those triple digits, which are fast approaching. It'll also keep your house warm during those winter months as well. But in addition to the money you're going to save, and that alone should be a great reason for you to reach out to Texas Windows. Also, it's about safety. I have an 8-month-old in the house, as I mentioned, and we're childproof and everything to make sure that, you know, all of the windows and all the things in the house are childproof for her safety. And old windows can be really tough to childproof. They're not up on the latest protocols and the latest technological advances when it comes to windows, but Texan Windows are, and they can make sure that your family, which is the most important thing in your life, and your home, your most important investment, are kept safe and sound. And my man Patrick will give you all the details on how you can reach out to Texan Windows today.
You can get hold of Texas Windows at TexanWindows.com or call 855-55-TEXAN to get a hassle-free estimate by email or over the phone, whatever's easier for you. Or you can stop by their showroom in Buda or Fort Worth and check out their in-stock windows. Got that nice new showroom in Buda. And right now is a great time to go get your windows. If you want to see, if you're looking into it, go check them out now, because now for the month of June through July 4th, when you make the purchase of 10 replacement windows, you'll be eligible to receive a free Blackstone grill. So you can get those windows and look out on your beautiful backyard that you're going to be hanging out with your new Blackstone grill. All that you can check out at TexanWindows.com. Texan Windows, your Central Texas window experts.
Okay, so we know that SMU, they wanted to be a part of the haves, not the have-nots in college football. So they decided to forego their revenue distribution in the ACC for the first 7 to 9 years, just so they can be a part of the ACC. And ACC was like, well, yeah, if you're going to come on for free, hell yeah, we'll take it. I mean, that's easy money coming on for free. And the concern was that SMU, I mean, how are you going to pay for this? I mean, you must be really confident that you're going to be able to raise enough money for the basically over the next decade to support yourself when you're getting no revenue distribution and you're trying to keep up with the haves in this new financial framework of college football where you got a $20-something million gap that you got to close with the new revenue sharing deal. Guys, man, SMU is not going to have any trouble at all. Reportedly, they've already raised $159 million in this calendar year. Like really since that they decided to forego the ACC revenue distribution and the news was announced they were going to the ACC, they have raised $159 million. Guys, to give you perspective on that, Texas A&M led the nation with $115 million raised in 2022-23. They raised $159 million. They ain't done yet. So we see now why they were willing to go, oh, no, you can keep y'all money. We're good. As long as y'all let us in, that's all we need. We'll handle the money. Now, don't forget, SMU got money. I mean, hell, man, back in the day.
Pony Express.
Exactly. We know they got money. Now, when you think about this, the new era of NIL, now that they actually can use those BMDs, big money boosters and donors, they actually use them to weaponize NIL. And what have I been telling y'all for the last 2-3 years? What is the most fertile metro area in the country for producing NFL talent outside of Atlanta? DFW. There's enough talent there to support 8-9 schools. There's a ton of talent there. It's the second most fertile recruiting ground in the country for NFL talent.
Why do you think SEC Media Days is there this year?
Boom. And SMU was right there, smack dab in the middle of it. That's why they got those Dallas. They got some Dallas jerseys now. They wear kind of how U of H tries to represent the Love You Blue. They want to represent like Dallas overall. They got some Dallas jerseys. One thing I like about SMU too, though, they always recruit good quarterbacks, whether it be transfer portal. Hell, half of them from Texas, whether it be a Garrett Gilbert or a Shane Buechele. Now they got this kid Preston Stone. He's a stud too, by the way. If you hadn't watched him, go look at him. But my point is this: SMU can make. Matter of fact, Texas just had. I want to say Texas just had they're in a recruiting battle now with some SMU recruit. They're in a recruiting battle with SMU now over a recruit. Like Texas is not supposed to be getting into battles with SMU over recruits. That's a win for SMU. If they're recruiting anybody that Texas is recruiting, seriously, that's a win for SMU because Texas is supposed to win that recruitment. But I think SMU is going to be more of a player with some of these guys because they got the NIL money. They're right there close to home in DFW where a lot of these elite athletes are. And they want to say, and in the transfer portal era, when you strike out at one place, it's a great school for a mulligan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because they'll pay you, and it's in Dallas, right? It's a great school. Like, oh, man, I'm from Dallas, but I originally went to Florida State. Didn't work out there. I'm transferring. You know what? I'm going back home. What do I always say? When people transfer, they often end up going back home or closer to home. I don't come back to DFW. You can get the transfer portal athletes, get a lot of athletes in recruiting too, with name, image, and likeness being a weapon for you because you got straight cash, homie. Watch out for SMU, man. Just watch out for them. Might make some noise. They might make a little noise.
Hey, it's ACC too.
Exactly. You recruit better because you can say, hey, no. We're recruiting to the ACC. We're recruiting to the American.
No. But you can win in the ACC.
Oh, yeah.
You can win there.
That is true, too. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. When you got Clemson and
Florida State,
Notre Dame,
don't
Florida
forget
State,
Florida State's mad enough that we keep forgetting them. They're mad enough.
They're trying to get out though. They don't want to be a part of the ACC no more.
I know, but they're not happy with. They keep getting left off of lists like the playoffs,
covers of video games.
We were undefeated.
Florida State can't. You're right. That's a good point. Considering what they have accomplished last year, they get no respect. Like Rodney Dangerfield, they get no love. Now that's a good point. But yeah, just throwing it out there, guys. SMU raising a ton, and they're not done. They might be raising $200 million total before the year's out. Easily. All right. So there you go. A little what the facts, what the stats. We come back. We'll dive into the big story of the day. JJ Redick announced as the Lakers head coach. I'll give my man Patrick's thoughts about that. He's our NBA insider. We'll give his thoughts about that. Also, Bill Simmons has a strange, bizarre, and extreme plan for the Boston Celtics in this draft, and it involves one Bronny James. We'll talk about his suggestion for the Boston Celtics. My man Patrick's thoughts about that. We'll go behind the burn orange curtain, talk low Texas football. There's a scouting report about Quinn Ewers. I warned you guys that there were going to be certain things they would critique specifically about his skill set coming out in the NFL draft. They're already doing it, and the season ain't even started yet. So we'll address that on the other side too. All of that and more. Oh, and an off the record that is going to be absolutely epic. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag Feel Good, Fake It Till You Make It. Ric Flair, woo, 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. And on a 512 Friday, that's when Patrick Davis, my co-host, the Idillionaire, plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to see live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Paul Val. He is playing tonight at the Continental Club. Tin Vision is opening up. It's going to be a really good show. Paul, one of the best guitar players in town, always puts on a killer show. So check out Paul Val tonight at the Continental Club. This is a new track, Rock and Soul.
Oh, yeah, I like it. Nice. Thanks to Patrick for always hooking us up on a 512 Friday, all of our musically themed days of the week. We'll get to the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, actually. You can go check that out. That is already posted on the Horn's X account at the Horn ATX. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll today. Since JJ Redick was hired as a broadcaster straight to coaching, we ask you which NFL broadcaster would make the best head coach. Right now, Tony Romo's got the lead in a little bit over Troy Aikman. Tom Brady coming in third, and Chris Collinsworth. Who's voting for Chris?
Nobody.
So he's got 4%. Someone voted.
Oh,
for
does
him.
he? I thought you said no. That's
Somebody
more than I thought
voted for. I know. I thought he'd be at 0%.
How do you vote Romo over Aikman though?
I think they just like Romo.
I know. That's the only thing. Just because you like somebody, this is kind of the JJ Redick thing. Just because you like somebody doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a great head coach.
I can tell you, I think this is the reason. It's because Tony Romo is notorious for breaking down a play and telling you what's going to happen before it happens. But
we realize he's been wrong. He's been wrong lately, though. That was his first year. He was right. Last couple years, he's been wrong about those plays.
But I think that's what people are looking at and saying. If he can tell you what's going to happen, then he'd be a good head coach. The problem is the head coach has to anticipate what they're going to do before they line up on the field, because once they line up, it's too late. You've already called the play, and you're on the sideline watching, and you may be on the sideline going, crap, 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 crap. But you've already called it. I'm guessing that would be my guess is what the logic
I like
is.
Romo. I like Romo. I'm a Romo-sexual. I'm a big Romo fan. I just think if I'm choosing between Cowboys quarterbacks to be head coaches, I think I'd take Troy over Romo, but it's close. It's 38% to 36%.
And again,
but I take Aikman over Romo, and I love Romo.
Yeah, I think Troy is he's a great. Troy Aikman's one of those guys that he was basically an offensive coordinator of the Cowboys for a while too.
Feels like that. My thing was Tom Brady. I said I would take Tom Brady number one over all of these potential options, just because Tom Brady, number one, he knows how to win. That's number one. Like he went to the Bucs, won a Super Bowl with the Bucs after leaving the Patriots. And remember, he took his offense from the Patriots. That was his offense. That is not Bill O'Brien's offense. That ain't, Josh McDaniels' offense. No, that is Tom Brady's offense. He took his offense to the Bucs and won a Super Bowl running his offense. So what you'll get with Tom Brady also, in addition to a guy that knows how to win, what it takes, and has got the respect of everybody and street credit of everybody, but you'll get an offense too. Like you get a built-in offense already. And one of the things I don't know if it's kind of a belief of mine. I don't know if it's true or not, but when you have a player who is becoming a head coach, I think the players who weren't as athletically gifted, they're always better. They're better coaches most of the time. There are exceptions to the rule, but most of the time, the ones who weren't as physically gifted are better coaches because they had to actually coach up their skill set and develop their skill set. Yeah. Rather than a guy who's physically so freakishly gifted, he comes in and he's frustrated often that players can't do what he did. And it's like, well, because you were blessed with immense, tremendous athletic ability that I don't have. That's MJ. MJ says that. Why can't you do the fadeaway jump? It's like, well, because I ain't you, MJ. But Tom Brady, I can tell you how to go from being a 6th round pick to being a really good player in the NFL. You may not be a GOAT like me, but I can tell you how to make it in this league. How to be a player that contributes.
Now, if we're saying that too, then Tony Romo is even more of that than Tom. And I get there's other reasons, but Tony Romo.
Well, Tony Romo never won though. He never won.
No,
he never won as a player. He didn't win. He didn't get past a freaking divisional round. So very big difference. Huge difference. One player was a quarterback of a dynasty, and one was a starting quarterback for a team that hasn't made it past a divisional round in 2 to 3 decades. Very different. Very different. I love me some Romo.
I was simply saying of someone who was not drafted into the league. And
but I'm asking about in addition to knowing how to win, having your own offense. By the way, Tony Romo had his own offense too. Actually, when I have to get the name of the receiver. There's a receiver that went on the record and said that when he got to the Cowboys, that Romo was doing all the install. That Romo did all the install, and he was the one that installed the offense. It was Butler. What's his name? Forget his name. His last name was Butler,
but
the receiver.
But that's also Romo was known as the one that when Dak came in, he coached him up so well that he took his job.
That's true. Good point. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, no, say Romo knows offense.
Yeah,
he's legit. He'll bring his own offense too. I just don't know if Romo knows what it takes to win in the playoffs like a Tom Brady does. You know what I mean? That's kind of my thing. So that's why I'll take Tom Brady over. But that's why I'll take Troy over Tony Romo too. I'll take Troy over Tony Romo because Troy knows how to win. Tony Romo don't know how to win. I love Romo, but Romo ain't winning a lot of games, y'all. Well, y'all want a coach who don't know how to win? Like I want a coach that knows how to win, that knows what it takes to win. And it's all about win.
It is all
about winning games, right?
I'll still stand by Tom Brady will be your quarterback by week 3 or 4. I just find no way that dude would be able to sit back and let someone else do it.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I don't know. His personality. I mean, he did try to pull a Jackie Moon at one point.
He did. He also got
player.
Bruce Arians kicked off the team because he was coaching him too hard.
He did. Well, because Bruce Arians wanted to run his offense. He's like, dude, it's my offense. Get out of here. Like, this is my offense. I won a Super Bowl. Get out of here. Right? I ain't running this offense. You don't run it anymore, Bruce Arians. And I think what Bruce understood was that he was right. And the players were responding to Tom. They weren't listening to Bruce. No. I was like, no, Bruce, you've been here. This guy came and won a Super Bowl the first year. It's him. We're listening to him. Yeah. It's Tom's team. And so you may have to deal with that. You're right. Tom Brady is a control freak, but most coaches are. It was Bryce Butler who went to the Cowboys and said that when he got to the Cowboys, he said Tony Romo was doing all the install. Like, it was just Romo installing the offense. Like, offensive coordinators, head coaches, it was just Romo installing it with all the new players. So Romo has that kind of acumen as well. So there you go. All right, good question there for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. First, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day, and then we'll dive into JJ Redick hired as the new head coach of the LA Lakers. But first, Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Lakers finally found their coach, hiring JJ Redick to a 4-year contract. The 39-year-old Redick finished a 15-year playing career in 2021, has been a broadcaster and a podcast host in the years since. The hiring of a former player with no coaching experience as a head coach has had mixed results, with some of the previous hires including Steve Nash, Derek Fisher, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, and more. The Lakers will now work to surround Redick with an experienced assistant coaching staff. Also in the NBA, the Thunder and Bulls completed a trade with Chicago sending Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. The former 6th overall pick Giddey, who is only 21, struggled to find playing time during the playoffs on a Thunder team stacked with young talent, and the Bulls hope to utilize his playmaking ability more with their offensive threats. The 30-year-old Caruso has made an all-defensive team the last 2 seasons and is thought as one of the best role players in the league. With Caruso due a new contract after the season, the Thunder will have to decide if they value his contributions long-term. In Major League Baseball, the Astros picked up a 5-3 victory over the White Sox yesterday and won the series 2-1. Yordan Alvarez crushed a homer in the first inning and then contributed another RBI as part of the Astros' 7th-inning 4-run rally to regain the lead. Spencer Arrighetti was pulled in the 5th round, giving up 2 runs, but the bullpen was able to hold out and get the Astros a much-needed win. They will now head into a series with an Orioles team that holds the 2nd-best record in the American League. And the Rangers will begin a series with the Royals today, sending Nathan Eovaldi to the mound, trying to turn around a disappointing June for the club, who has gone 7-10 so far this month. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. All right, let's get right to the top story. It was the worst kept secret in all of sports that JJ Redick was one of the top choices for the Lakers to fill their head coaching vacancy. And now it is done officially. JJ Redick is the head coach of the LA Lakers. His last 5 years have been wild, though. And we were just talking about how different it is. Really just I would say just the respect that you overall get as a coach, as a head coach in the NBA. And we were talking about how they are like the Rodney Dangerfield of pro coaches, because no matter how much money you make as a coach, we just saw that from Monty Williams, no matter if you won a championship, no matter how many wins you have, you never really have job security as a head coach in the NBA, unless like you're super, like in addition to you being a made man, let's say you won a championship, Steve Kerr, pop stuff type stuff, and or you're superstars, plural, that they love you and they still vouch for you. They still have your back. As soon as your superstar turns against you, oftentimes doesn't even matter if you won a lot of games or a championship, you still could be gone. And we've seen that even with the Lakers and LeBron a little bit. The last 5 years for JJ Redick, played with the Pelicans. He launched his own media company. He signed with the Mavs. He launched a podcast, signed with ESPN, moved to ESPN from the number 2 broadcast team to the number 1 broadcast team, and launched a podcast with LeBron. And now Lakers head coach. That is a hell of a 5-year plan if you can get it, Patrick. But for JJ Redick, who probably has one of the thinnest resumes, and you brought up some of the other examples of NBA head coaches who didn't have a ton of head coaching experience, if any at all, and the results have been mixed. What are your thoughts about JJ Redick? What's he going to bring to the table as his strength as a head coach? What made him stand out for the obviously the GM and Pelinka and the ownership of the Lakers, and why they choose him other than the relationship with LeBron? What makes JJ Redick special? You're an NBA guy.
So it's not just a relationship with LeBron. I think it's a relationship with a lot of players in the NBA. He's had a lot of guys on his podcast, and he's talked with a lot of these guys. He's either played with them or had them on the podcast. He's interviewed them for doing ESPN, ABC stuff. So I think he has a good relationship with a lot of players in the league. So I think that helps in. I think the fact that he is very up on the product between doing the shows, that he's got an ability to self-scout the Lakers as well as scout other teams around the league. He knows what they do well. He's already scouted a lot of these teams. He knows what a lot of the players can do, can help out in scouting for games, can help out in scouting for free agency. So you add that in there. He also has shown a great work ethic, which is what you need to be a head coach. A lot of guys, when they retire, start to take time off. He has not. He has stayed working very consistently and doing the podcast and doing the broadcasting and constantly working, constantly studying game film, constantly pulling out new takes and new looks at X's and O's and breaking down film. Those are types of things you want to make sure that a guy who's coming in the work's not too much for him. That, they retired 4 years ago and they're enjoying their home life. He is not. He's been on the road. He's been doing things. So you enjoy seeing that as well. And you believe that he's somebody that, when you've watched him, breaks down X's and O's in a way that's really what you were kind of looking for in the next coach. You have LeBron, so being the motivator is not necessarily going to be your biggest thing. You're going to be working with a lot of the other guys, but you need to put them in a position to win. You need to be able to find ways to scheme guys open so that when LeBron drives, you're working with shooters to try and get shooters open to hit threes where LeBron and AD can create, and then they throw the ball back out for shooters. And what was JJ Redick? That's what he did. That was JJ Redick's job, was to be the guy on the outside that when a star was doing something inside, could kick the ball back out. Or if Chris Paul had the ball, he could find him when he drove. And that's what you want to see. JJ Redick personally had experience doing that. He understands the inner workings of how to try and get yourself open. And that's kind of what they want from a lot of these players on this team. Is, man, just get open and hit threes. And that's what JJ Redick did. So if you're saying who can coach the rest of this team up around LeBron and AD, that's great. And then you can give him the faith to try and get him inside, get him some assistant coaches with some experience. And then when you go into the post-LeBron era, and the post-AD, maybe post-AD, but post-LeBron era, depending on who you bring in this offseason. I know they want to bring in a star. There's talk of Jimmy Butler. There's talk of Donovan Mitchell. I'm sure there's other names out there that people they want to try and bring in via trade. If you move into that next era, can he be part of that? And you kind of get a year or two running start as a head coach before you work into that era, learn a little bit more of what the game takes. And then when LeBron leaves, you feel more confident going into that. It's only a 4-year deal. If LeBron leaves and it's not working out, you can move on from then. Really, in a year, if there's a great head coach that becomes available and you want to go after him, JJ Redick's easier to get rid of than if you hire a Dan Hurley or you hire a big name coach. Then you have to stay with them for 3 or 4 years. But if you hire a JJ Redick and it doesn't work out, it's fine. And, even if you get to a case of a Mark Jackson, who was one of the coaches we named that went straight into coaching, was a broadcaster and went into coaching. Mark Jackson wasn't great. He was a good coach, but he got that team up to a level that then Steve Kerr, another first-time head coach, came in and made them into a dynasty.
Yeah, that's wild. Actually, I didn't think about that. You're right. They went back-to-back with first-time head coaches there. At least Steve Kerr had a little bit of front office experience for the most part. But, yeah, that's really interesting. And I agree with you on that about if, and not that JJ Redick going to do a good job, but even if you just want an upgrade, you can upgrade. And by the way, man, do you think he will make it past 3 years? That's kind of the question, because no Lakers coach has made it past 3 years since Phil Jackson.
I mean, so
it's been what? It's Luke Walton.
Past 3, I think he can make it 3. I think he can make it 3.
Think he can make it 3 on the dot.
Well, because past 3,
it's all about LeBron, right? It's all about when LeBron.
I don't see LeBron being there in 3 years. So I think I don't see LeBron being there for more than 2 more years.
Okay.
So you say it depends of if LeBron goes 2 more years and then he gets 1 year after that, then it's just a crapshoot of do they hire a new coach because they feel they still have stuff there? Do they get Donovan Mitchell or Jimmy? Do they have another star that's in there and they feel like they should be competing? Or is it a rebuild? I mean, there were some years in there that were pretty slim for the Lakers after Kobe. So you can say, or there were some years, there were slim with Kobe before he retired. So, I mean, you could say that he may last 4 years, but I think if he lasts 4, either he's doing a great job, or that team's so bad they just don't really care they'll just not renew him at the end of it, and they'll go get somebody else. But I mean, it's hard to tell. You never know with these guys. I could see him doing 4. I would say I put the odds slightly of him being able to last this whole contract. I put the odds of, as somebody that I think can do a good enough job, I think he can make it 4 years. It's a Lakers, so you never know. I find it harder to believe that he would butt heads necessarily with the star players. He's never been the star on a team. So some of these guys have an issue with it because they butt heads more, because they were a star once. Surprisingly, one of the best records for a coach who didn't have any coaching experience, but he had executive experience, Larry Bird. Larry Bird was actually 179 and 87 with the Pacers as a record. It's a pretty good record.
That's a really good record.
So, but he was somebody that you would expect to have more of an ego, but it worked on a Pacers team that wasn't as much of an issue. When you get to the Lakers, you're going to be trying to bring in stars. He's going to have to be able to do that, but he's gotten along with Luka. He got along in the short time with him. He got along with Blake Griffin. He got along with Chris Paul. He got along with all these other stars he's played with throughout his career. So it makes sense that he would be able to get along with the guys now. It's just trying to impose your will as a coach and trying to get guys to fall in line and be friendly.
Yeah, the hope is that the relationship that he does have with LeBron, because when LeBron sets the example of how he treats JJ Redick, everybody else will follow, right?
Yeah.
So if he's treating JJ Redick in front, I'm talking about in the locker room, obviously their facilities, if he's treating them a little too casually and like, hey, like they're boys, then I think that's kind of how the players will treat him because he's so young, right? He's 39 years old or something.
It's the Spurs story Steven Jackson would tell of him sitting on the bench and he sees Pop lighting into everyone just going down the bench, and he's like, this MFer ain't going to come to me and talk like that to me. He ain't going to do it. And then he sees him light into Tim Duncan, and Tim takes it. And he goes, man, now I got to take it because Tim just took it. And I can't do it if Tim doesn't do it. And so it's that concept. He tells the story. And so it is. If LeBron takes it and LeBron goes with it and works with him, then everybody else has to fall in line. AD does it. Everybody else has to fall in line because if those guys take it, you have good players like Austin Reeves is a great guy that you want to come in and coach. Austin Reeves is a guy that you feel, okay, he's going to fall in line because he just wants to win. He wants to be able to do this. He's going to fall. So it's more of when you start bringing in other players to fit around it, how do you find the right guys that are perfect for that? But that's always been an issue for every team. There's nothing new about that. But you're right. It is, if LeBron makes this easier on everybody, and how long does he make it easier before he starts to go and pull the clipboard away and say, no, I'm running this? And how long before he says, no, that play don't work for me?
Yes, in front of the team is like, nah. And then, when does that happen? When does that moment come where LeBron corrects him in front of the team? It's like, nah, we don't need to do that. Let's do this. And then, he's the de facto coach.
Then you also got to remember, there's a pretty decent chance he's coaching Bronny James next year too, and that adds another element.
Damn, father-son, first time ever for a first-time coach coaching a first-time ever father-son duo. And that's because to me, it's all about how LeBron basically LeBron tries to treat him and put him on display. He's going to put him on display in front of the team as the coach and the leader, and LeBron falls in line that no, we all listen to JJ. JJ's word is bond. If JJ says it, we all fall in line, period. Or will there be this like exchange with LeBron, and does LeBron James want to be kind of de facto head coach here with JJ Redick because he knows that the organization, the ownership, the players, they will all follow him rather than JJ Redick if there becomes some type of conflict. So I think a lot of this is on LeBron. Like LeBron will ultimately determine how respected and revered JJ Redick is around there. There's a lot of that.
100%.
Okay. Real quick, I want to get your thoughts about this. So we talked, about JJ Redick a lot. I want to since we're just talking about Bronny. I don't know if you heard the Bill Simmons latest podcast where and I think he's just kind of ranting in jest, but people apparently were very critical of one of these suggestions he made. I think he was joking, of course. And I think it was like partially joking, but I think some of it may have been serious because he was talking about Boston and what they should do with the draft. And I think he was talking about Boston and LA and the Lakers and the Celtics and that rivalry going back and forth. And then basically one of the things that Bill Simmons said that the Celtics should go after Bronny. That they should go after Bronny. And here's the quote. Here's my case, everybody says this draft sucks. The Celtics are so deep, anyone in this draft isn't going to play for them. Why not take Bronny and you basically hold him hostage? Because all these other teams want him, right? The Lakers, you want him. Well, we took Bronny. Give us Max Christie. How bad do you want him? I would say Bronny, the asset at 30 as a trade thing, is worth more than anyone they could get there. At that,
that's a very Bill Simmons take. It's a very Bill Simmons take. I also love we're so deep, and you're like, dude, you were 7 deep in the playoffs. If that, you were not so deep on the Celtics. Peyton Pritchard couldn't stay in the series because he was such a defensive liability. You could use another player. Sam Hauser was getting big minutes. Let's leave it. I get it's a bad draft, but you could find somebody in there who could play minutes for the Celtics. Let's not pretend they were so deep they were playing 10 guys. Xavier Tillman came in and played 2 games and then got exposed and couldn't even play in game 5. So stop pretending that we're too deep. We're too deep, Celtics. But no, I get it. It's not a good move to do in basketball to hold family members hostage and basically threaten to ruin a player's career because down the line, because first of all those players be like, why are you doing that? Like, I don't think Derek White or Jrue Holiday or Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Al Horford or any of those guys would find it extremely funny to screw over another team. I don't think they care as much about that. I get he's a Celtics fan, so it's a funny take from a Celtics fan.
Yeah.
I think the players are much more a fraternity of if you do that kind of stuff, hey man, we're all out, man. That's not cool.
We don't play that game. It's so damn powerful. Yeah, we don't play that game of management you're literally trying to ruin a kid's future for you to play a petty game. So I think in one sense it's a funny take. I like it because I like Bill Simmons. It's a funny take from a Celtics fan, but also in that same take, you're 7 deep. Yeah. But I will say this. The reason I thought about it is because I remember you bringing it up. You were like, man, that could always be a rogue team. And I don't think Celtics going to be the rogue team. Oh, no. If you have a rogue owner or a rogue team that goes, you know what, we're doing it. And all it takes is one.
Oh, no. And I think you could have a rogue team. I don't think you would take it as a bartering chip. I think you would take him as you would in your head go, I'm going to get
LeBron.
We want LeBron, and we're going to get Brian. Rich Paul, by the way, came out and said, by the way, that is a ridiculous notion. And also, it doesn't mean if the Lakers draft him, LeBron's going to stay. It also doesn't mean that. But that's an agent talking. So
they're trying to play both sides. You can tell. Because at one side, they've been putting out there that, oh man, he wants to play with the son and be the first father-son combo and loves the Lakers draft. And on the other end, it's like, no, we're not holding the Lakers hostage. We're not forcing Lakers to draft our son, draft Bronny.
No, that was the report. There was a report that came out that LeBron had no influence in hiring JJ Redick. And when but that's what you went, okay, well, if you didn't talk to LeBron, you're also dumb.
Exactly, because that's not true. That can't be true. You had to sit down with LeBron and talk this over with him.
Should mention to your star player, you'd be like, "Hey, is this cool? Before we hire him, we're not hiring a home run hire that we don't like. It's not Dan Hurley where we feel pretty confident in this, and we're fine with it whether you stay or leave. This is JJ Redick, so we kind of need you to be on board with this because again, what we just talked about, we need you to be on board, or else it doesn't work."
Yep, man, it's gonna blow up. It's gonna implode quick, fast, and hurry if LeBron over. So of course LeBron was involved.
He should have been.
Exactly. He definitely was involved. Now, was he the one leading the charge? That's a different question. We don't know that.
Exactly.
But he was definitely involved.
If the Spurs, if Greg Popovich retires, you should call Wemby and ask him what he thinks.
Don't do that. Yes, exactly right. Remember, we learned this in the NFL. There were some situations, I hate to say it, but the Texans and Deshaun Watson, actually probably the one most notable close to home. Remember, they traded DeAndre Hopkins and didn't tell Deshaun. He saw it on like ESPN on the crawl. And he literally said that at that time is when he decided, I don't know if I want to play for this Texas team. Like that's when like the angst started between them. Now, we all know that was all for the all for the good. We're glad that Deshaun Watson and the Texans parted ways. But getting to your point, though, you want to involve your superstar in those kind of decisions, even if it's just a courtesy to say, "Hey, sit down. Hey, what are your thoughts here?" And I know they did that with LeBron. So, he does a podcast with the guy. Is the podcast done? Is the podcast over now? Because they just started this damn thing like what, like a few months ago.
Probably on hiatus for a little bit.
I'm telling you, it'll be the most listened to podcast in the sports world if they had one. If they just did one, say they did one last one before he became official. It will blow up.
Hey,
It'd get
I'll
like
tell you
millions upon millions of
I'll
views.
tell you, every single Laker's gonna watch it.
Exactly. So saying, like, everybody would watch that, but like, I gotta watch this. I gotta see what they talking about because this is now a new dynamic. This is from friends. Now you're going head coach to superstar player of the Lakers. Fascinating stuff there. All right, we come back. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. I've been trying to warn you guys about these scouting reports about Quinn and what they were going to hint at and what they were going to criticize about his game and critique about his game. And I said they would bring up the deep ball, said they would bring up the way he handles pressure. And I got a scouting report from actually from 33rd. It's a NFL website that covers the league, but from one of their draft analysts, and they wrote a scouting report for all the quarterbacks. They're doing team by team. They did Carson Beck, I believe, last week. They're doing Quinn this week. I'll read the scouting report to you. You tell me if some of the things sound familiar. Hint, they do. We'll come back and discuss it right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the Burnout's curtain, talk some Texas football. I want to get into this scouting report that I saw from the 33rd NFL draft study about Quinn Ewers, and they're doing their scouting reports for all the quarterbacks in college football, at least obviously the ones who are expected to make the leap to the NFL. And Quinn Ewers expected to be a first-round pick, or at least be one of those quarterbacks considered to be a first-round pick. And what they're saying here in this scouting report, that if he doesn't improve on certain aspects of his game, that he may drop in the draft. Now, remember, I told you for months now, the NFL scouts I talk to, they want to see how Quinn handles pressure. They don't think he handles pressure really well. And they also want to see him improve on his deep ball. We've talked about that too. But it's the pressure thing. And I'll break down the numbers here in just a second. So I always read the scouting report, and they go over a couple of things that I brought up several times on this show about Quinn that he has to improve on. I think he will, by the way, and be a first-round pick. But here's the excerpt. This scouting report. It said in 2023, Ewers was considered one of the more unpredictable potential QB prospects in the 2024 class. A year later, not much has changed. Ewers has a strong pedigree and impressive skills, but his performance has been inconsistent. While he demonstrated the ability to excel with precise, short, and intermediate passes and avoid turnovers, he's also encountered struggles, especially with a porous O-line and limitations as a creator and deep passer. Texas lost a lot of talent to the 2024 NFL draft, and if Ewers can't elevate a brand new supporting cast, Coach Steve Sarkisian will hear the jeers every time a pass hits the ground, as he did during the recent spring game. Though Ewers hasn't yet reached the level of success Burrow achieved in his senior year at LSU, the two share similarities as pocket passers. Burrow is the only genuine pocket passer among the NFL's elite quarterbacks. No other NFL QB finds as much success staying stationary in the pocket. However, in his deep passing is objectively poor. In 2023, he's talking about Quinn here now, he completed only 16 of 47 passes beyond 20 yards, despite having Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. And in 2022, his marks weren't better, completing 16 of 52 attempts. He tends to overshoot deep attempts and fades onto his back foot, losing control of the ball's arc. Ewers struggles while under pressure, and his inability to connect on big plays downfield are troublesome. He took a sack while under pressure at an alarming 30.6% rate, though he completed 76 of his passes when he did get a throw off. He's athletic, but not a quick athlete, so he's dead in the water when a rusher comes free. Everything needs to move quicker for Ewers to take the next step. He'll take fewer pressures and sacks as he relies less on RPOs to reveal coverages. His reaction to rushers has to be more decisive, and knowing his hot read would lead to growth. They said growth against pressure, including creating some off-platform throws, would be Ewers' biggest single point of improvement. Another year of stagnation would leave him in the day two mix, which is likely the feedback he heard before deciding to return to Texas. Now, they put out a 30.6% sack rate under pressure, sack to pressure rate. That's a little bit higher than the numbers that I've shared with you guys that I've gotten from Pro Football Focus and Sports Info Solutions. Pressure to sack rate, but it just shows you that's what they're concerned about. That's one of the only numbers they put out there. Two numbers they listed in the scouting report: deep ball accuracy and pressure, right? How he handles pressure. So this is the mystery, right? Because I talked about this early in the show. Most pressure to sack numbers, there is no metric that determines sack avoidance. So you're just combining different metrics, different analytical models to try to determine if a quarterback is good at avoiding pressure and avoiding a sack. So pressure to sack rate is one of these metrics that they use. And Quinn's pressure to sack rate throughout his career so far has been 20.7. That's not bad. But in 2022, his pressure to sack rate was 13.9%. And in 2023, it's above 25%. And you think to yourself, man, that's a drastic difference. You're right. Because, and by the way, the NFL believes that pressure to sack rates, as I've told you guys, they translate from the college game almost directly to the NFL. I'll give you a couple of examples. You go look at Patrick Mahomes, pressure to sack rate in college, 11.3, in the NFL, 11.1. Go look at Trevor Lawrence, 15.8 in college, 15.8 in the league. Look at Josh Allen, 16.3 in college, is a 13.3 in the league, so a little bit different, but he actually improved. Jared Goff, 15.2 in college, 14.7 in the league. Go look at Dak Prescott, 16.7 in college, 16.5 in the league. You get my point. It translates. So what they want to know is Quinn Ewers a 25% sack pressure to sack rate quarterback, or is he a 13.9% pressure to sack rate quarterback? By the way, the 13.9%, if it translates to the NFL, pressure to sack rate, puts him in the top 5 best sack avoidance quarterbacks in the league. If he's at 25%, it puts him in the bottom 5 worst quarterbacks in sack avoidance in the league. Big difference. So who is Quinn Ewers when it comes to handling pressure? That's what they want to find out. Quinn's allowed pressure percentage in 2022 and 2023 with the same amount of pressures, by the way, 14% in 2022, 22% in 2023. That's his Quinn's allowed pressure percentage. So that's actually probably a little higher than coaches would like it too. And if you go look at his sack rate versus pressure, Sports Info Solutions has it at 33.8%. Why are they different? Everybody's got a different definition of pressure. Everybody's got a different definition of a quarterback hurry. So everybody's sack definition is the same, quarterback taken down behind the line of scrimmage. But when it comes to pressures, some people have a different definition of what a pressure is. So that's why sometimes the pressure numbers can be a little bit off. But for Quinn, that's the big question. How does he handle pressure? As a matter of fact, pressure also includes the blitz. If you throw in blitz numbers in there, I mean, and I've been, like I said, following this for a while, and I'm a little concerned about it in scouting the Michigan game. Quinn Ewers, his Pro Football Focus grade drops 27 points versus the blitz compared to non-blitz situations. And you know who blitzes more than anybody? Arguably anybody in the NFL or the college game? Wink Martindale, the new defensive coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines. When he was with the Ravens, they were ranked no lower than 8th in blitz rate. They were actually led the league in his first 3 seasons. His last 2 years with the Giants, they were 1st and 2nd in blitz rate. Oh, Wink is coming. So if NFL scouts, by the way, Michigan's got a lot of NFL players on that team. One of the best defenses in the NFL, best defenses in college football. They got an NFL defensive coordinator. NFL scouts are going to want to see Quinn in that game versus NFL caliber talent on Michigan's defense and an NFL defensive coordinator who likes to bring pressure. They're going to be looking to see if Quinn has gotten better at handling that pressure. So that's something to keep in mind too. They're worried about the deep ball. I'm not worried about the deep ball. I think the deep ball will get better, but there's no question. Quinn's deep ball was atrocious early on in his career at Texas. Even last year, he completed 33% of his passes, 20 yards or more down the field. That was 76th in the FBS if you want to look at that. But I go look at some of the other metrics for Quinn when it comes to his deep ball. And I remember throwing these out there before the draft. Xavier Worthy, his 9.2 career yards per target average on passes, 20 yards or more, deep passes, was the worst of any receiver who any non-undrafted receiver. So any receiver that was drafted from the Power 5 last year in the receiving class, it was among the worst. And his off-target percentage was close to 23% for Xavier Worthy. So once all the scouts saw the Texas receivers at the combine and how impressive they went back to the tape and then were even more critical of Quinn's deep ball. But it will get better because it has gotten better. Last 7 starts for Quinn, his deep ball, 92 QBR on deep passes, 43% completion percentage, and 14.8 yards per attempt, and a 25% off target rate. Prior to his last 7 starts, his deep ball numbers, 23 QBR, went up to 92. Completion percentage went from 24% to 43%. Yards per attempt went from 7.9 to 14.8, and off target percentage went from 44 to 25. So he's gotten much better. So I'm not worried about the deep ball. Deep ball will be fine. He'll be fine in the deep ball. What I'm really worried about is how he handles pressure. Because I think a lot of people have these numbers now, and in the SEC, they blitz more than they do in the Big 12. So he's going to see a lot more blitzes. He's going to see a lot more pressure because the D linemen are better. So he's got to handle it. I think he's up to the task. Sark knows this too. So Sark can build in fail-safes within the offense. And now Sark can talk to him. He can talk to him before the snap. Calm him down a little bit. Hey, Quinn, watch out for that outside linebacker. He's coming. Just so you know, you might want to pick up that hot read on the other side. Now he can talk him through it a little bit. I think that might help too. All right, we come back. We'll get into Off the Record. I can't wait for this one. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, let's get right to it because we don't have a lot of time, but there's a ton to discuss here and dissect. So Matt Stafford's wife, Kelly Stafford, she has either her own podcast, she goes on a podcast all the time weekly. And she's gone viral a couple of times for things she said. She said that he was struggling relating to the younger players on his team. And she put that out there when I know he didn't want that out there because he had to later clarify that he wasn't criticizing his teammates, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So she recently was oversharing on this podcast and talked about how her and Matt Stafford got together. And she revealed the detail that I am pretty damn sure Matt Stafford did not want people to know outside of the Georgia football team. Here it is.
Wait, so was he trying to casually date and you were all in?
Yeah, girl. Anyways, long story short, it wasn't that cute of a relationship at first. I hated him. I loved him. I dated the backup to piss him off, which worked.
Yes.
He was like,
that'll do it.
He was the bad boy too. Like Matthew's so sweet and Southern gentleman and all that stuff. And the backup was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Ooh, and it upset him. So they lived in the same dorm because athletes lived in the same dorm, and he would see my car there. And so at one point he like waited and followed me out and got in my car and wouldn't get out. And he was like,
"This is so hot."
I was like, "This is amazing working."
Yeah.
I was get out of my car, and he was like, he's not right for you. And I was like, what? You can't tell me that.
Wow. Okay. So, was she? Yeah. So she also reveals that she was sleeping with the backup quarterback on the team.
Yeah, the bad boy.
They have tried to figure out who the backup quarterback is. And there are two choices because a backup, there's a third string quarterback. And the backup quarterback, I think he was a ginger whose name was Joe Cox. But then Graham Coffey is a guy who put this out on Twitter. He said he did the research and it's not Joe Cox, the backup. He said she was referring to Logan Gray, who was the third string quarterback at the time that they were dating. So she was trying to use the backup quarterback to make him jealous. So it may have been this guy, Joe Cox, or it may have been this guy, Logan Gray. I don't think we know exactly yet. I know Matthew Stafford is probably not thrilled with his wife sharing that she was trying to make him jealous by dating and motivated by dating. By the way, that is some Yoko Ono stuff, man. You could break up the whole damn team that way. Yeah. By the way, and I've said this before, this dynamic, whether you like it or not, it happens on every team almost that I've ever been on. And I've heard it happen to, whether you're talking about different sports or football or whatever, this dynamic where there's a young lady dating somebody on the team, and that same young lady has either dated somebody else on the team or later on dates another dude, a former or a teammate. It happens a lot. As a matter of fact, there's a famous story on the 40 Acres about arguably one of the most famous athletes in history of Texas sports, and why he decided to first try marijuana. Ricky Williams says the reason he first tried marijuana, matter of fact, I'm going to let Ricky tell you. Here, let Ricky tell you why he first tried marijuana. The man known as Sticky Icky Ricky, who got his own marijuana line right now. He started smoking weed because he was stressed out because of this dynamic.
Only about my senior year, we played a lot of Madden. I played with the Broncos, so you were an inspiration. You were an inspiration to me that year that I won the Heisman. So I was running for the Heisman, and I my girl for 2 years. Okay, we broke up, and it's like right after we broke up, I went to her house to bring her stuff back, and the quarterback on the football team's car was parked.
That's what started you smoking for real.
For real.
Your team had to backdoor you. He was handing the ball to you in the front and then stealing you, tackling you from the back. Oh, my dirty rascal.
That's how it started. And I was like obsessing about this. And my friend was like, dude, you got to chill. And so he just brought it out. He said, you got to hit this. And I did. And it was the first time where I was like, okay, I wasn't obsessing. I wasn't thinking about it. I could sleep and relax. And from that moment, I noticed, okay, this can be helpful to me.
You said you started smoking. What really got you on the path to smoking continuous was the situation with your girlfriend. Do you believe she broke up because she was seeing the other guy, or you guys wanted to separate and then it bothered you because it was a teammate? Because I don't know, would you have started smoking if the guy was on the basketball team or the baseball team or just a regular Joe Smo walking campus?
It was a lot. It was a lot. So when I was in college, I played minor league baseball.
Correct.
And so at the end of finals in May, I take my last final, I get in my car, I drive to Florida and get start playing baseball, and then I come back in August.
Right.
And so like the day before I left, crazy college story. The day before I left, like me and my girl, we got into an argument. And we're like, okay, let's break up.
You got into an argument for a reason. She started it, Ricky.
This actually, it was mostly my fault, but this time it actually was her. But anyways, So we got into an argument, and then I was like, all right, and then I went to Florida. But after a week, I was like, yeah, I miss her. And so we started talking and started kind of like working on the relationship. And at the time, her and the quarterback were friends, and I knew they hung out and they were hanging out. And I was like,
whoa, hold on, time out. Let me get a timeout. I'm gonna take a full timeout, not a 20-second. I need a full timeout. You mean to tell me you got a girlfriend and you allow her to hang out with guys? She talking about, oh, that's my friend.
Well, because we all hung out together before, so
yeah. We, but ain't no once I leave, he can still hang out. Oh, hell no.
I learned the hard way.
Then, Rick.
I learned the hard way. Like you said, I'm too trusted. You said,
yeah,
I'm too trusted. And so it's funny. So I came back, and we worked it out. And so I came back, and I was driving back from New York to come back to training camp. She met me in Tennessee, in Nashville, and we drove the rest of the way back. And we decided, okay, we're going to work on this. And as we're starting to like go through, she's like spending a lot of time with dudes, like shooting pool, and I'm thinking, okay, it feels kind of strange, but
yeah,
but they're friends, and then we played UCLA. It was the second game of the year, and it was the day after. I was sitting in a hot tub, and somehow my girlfriend's name came up, and somebody was like, "That's not Ricky's girl. That's blah blah's girl." And I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "Wait a minute."
Ooh.
And so I popped out of the hot tub, and I went back. We had payphone. I went to the payphone in the facility. And I picked up and I called her and I told her what I just heard. And she had that pause, when they pause.
Yeah. You got it. You got it. Because she paused, she's thinking of a lot to tell you. Because she could have just came out and said, no, that's not true. She paused. Because you paused. And I knew. Rick, that was
so
her.
I knew. And then I was like, okay. And I just, it got bad. And like you said, and then the crazy part in the UCLA game, the starting quarterback was my homie. He hurt himself, and then the backup quarterback who's still married. They're still married, and it's a happy story.
Okay, you can't be mad about that, Rick, because they got married.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's why. But at the time, I didn't know that. Now that's why
you still should.
I'm good with it now. One time I lost my temper. One time I lost my temper in practice. One time. I kept it together.
You fired on it, didn't you?
No, I just he called like an audible or something wrong, and I just threw the ball at his helmet real hard from up close. But I lost my cool. I lost my cool for that one moment.
But the thing is, look, okay, maybe they were meant to be together.
All right, there you go. That's Rick talking about the situation. And by the way, that is from what I understand, the most notorious and infamous of those dynamics that happened at Texas. But wait, it's happened, like I said, on other teams I was on at Texas, on other teams I was on with the Lions, with the Buck. At damn near every team I played on, there was a dynamic like this where there was a woman who had dated multiple guys on the team or was at that point dating multiple guys. It happens a lot. And I remember when I first came to Texas, this is why everybody loved Major, and I love Major too. Major's a good friend of mine. I love me some Major Applewhite. But people don't know that the locker room had a different view of Major than the fans did, because we knew this story. This is the story that the vets were sharing with us. Like, Major was banging Rick's woman, man. It's good. And they're married now, so God bless them. All right. That true love, it wins out in the end. All right. So it's great. But that's why the locker room had a different perception of Major than the fans did. And I know we still all love Major, but I mean, think about that and how shady that is. That made the backup quarterback, by the way, is banging the Heisman Trophy winner's girlfriend, or at least the guy who's going to win the Heisman Trophy. Like, that's great. And by the way, I wasn't there on the team, but I heard from vets and heard from people who witnessed it. There had to be people restrained multiple times because of disagreements. Have some grown man conversations they were having. They were in the same backfield, guys. The guy that got hurt was Richard Walton. That's what we were talking about, was his really good friend. He was the starting quarterback. Richard Walton gets hurt. Major comes in, becomes a star overnight, offensive freshman of the year in the Big 12. And he's in the same backfield with a guy that's banging his girlfriend. And trust me, that's a lot to deal with. And Mac Brown had to navigate that. That was like one of the big, Mac Brown probably will talk about it. That was one of the big issues they had to navigate that year, was how the hell do we deal with the starting quarterback now banging the ex-girlfriend of Ricky, and how do we navigate this? They did a good job though, because most of y'all didn't find out till a decade or so later.
Ricky's too
most
nice.
Of y'all didn't know a damn
Ricky's
thing.
too nice.
He's too nice, and that's why Ricky started smoking weed. Isn't that crazy? Like Ricky basically would have never became Sticky Icky Ricky if not for that traumatic event. He'd just been regular old Rick.
These women breaking up teams.
Hey, if it can happen to the Spurs, it can happen to anybody.
No,
was it Tony Parker and Aaron Berry was her name?
Brent
Berry's wife,
yeah.
Aaron Berry, right?
Yeah.
That was her name. Yeah. It can happen to the Spurs, it can happen to anybody. By the way, it happens on every team. I'm telling you. There's a dynamic like that on 85% of teams, high school, college, or pro. It just circles are too tight. circles.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
Happens with bands all the time.
Oh, I can even
All
imagine.
the time.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. See, yeah, it's about the circles that you are in, right? Yeah. All right, there you go. That's a little breakdown there. So Matt Stafford, I'm sure him and his wife are having a come to Jesus type moment. And who is this backup quarterback? When is he going to surface on social media? Is it Joe Cox or is it the other guy?
I'm sure the guy's got his own relationship. He's like, I don't need to be known as the guy who's breaking up Joe. I'm good.
He's like, hey, I was dating my wife at the time too, and I don't need her to know what I was doing on the side. We don't need to know all that. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into another big story. Michael Jordan's mythology right now seems to be losing some of its cachet. We'll talk about that. We'll also get into Rod's rant of the day. That'll be a breakdown about the new term being thrown out there for quarterback evaluation, sack avoidance. We just talked about it with Quinn Ewers. We'll actually give you numbers on sack avoidance from the best QBs in the NFL. We'll also have a Rangers report coming up on the other side. And also Adam Schefter claims that new Trevor Lawrence deal not only helps out Dak Prescott, but there are two other quarterbacks who are looking for a new deal, and they may be asking for Trevor Lawrence type numbers too. Crazy. We'll play that sound for you on the other side as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag Feel Good Fake It Till You Make It. Ric Flair, woo! 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast featuring my man Patrick Davis. And Patrick Davis is the Idillionaire, of course. My co-host always comes up with the creatively, musically themed days of the week. And today, 512 Friday, is when he plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Lou Apollo. He is playing Saturday at Central Machine Works.
All right, there you go. Good stuff there. 512 Friday will make you look cool in front of all your friends. All you got to do is pay attention to what my man Patrick, all the details and nuggets he's giving you. Then you'll know where all these very talented folks are playing coming up this weekend. So thanks to Patrick for that. Also, thanks to him for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. That is also posted, by the way, at the X account at the Horn ATX. You can go check that out. And it's a simple one, Patrick, but seems like we got a lot of different types of a lot of people voting differently in this big fat poll.
Yes, the big fat poll today. Which NFL broadcaster would make the best head coach? We're doing this after JJ Redick went just from broadcasting straight to coaching. The four I put up there are four of the major. So it's basically CBS is major, Fox is major, Sunday night, Monday Night Football. That's the four guys I put up there. So Tony Romo, Tom Brady, Chris Collinsworth, and Troy Aikman. Chris Collinsworth pulling 7% is the most surprising part of this poll to me.
I'm with you because I could see him being at 0. Like I don't see who would say
So
Chris Collinsworth is the broadcaster that I would take turn head coach over Romo, Brady, or Aikman.
Yeah, so that one surprises me the most. Troy Aikman now in the lead is taking up 41%.
Hey.
Troy Aikman has jumped over Tony Romo.
There you go. Good job, guys.
Tony Romo is now in second place. Tom Brady in third.
I'm a little surprised Brady's still in third. I would have Brady would be my first pick, but at least Troy should be ahead of Romo. People having Romo as the best selection of a broadcast attorney coach. I don't know if that's good. I think they like Romo more. Just because you like him more, it doesn't mean he'll be good. Hey, we can tell it to LeBron too. Just because you like him, LeBron, doesn't mean JJ Redick's going to be a good head coach. You like him enough to do a podcast with him, don't mean that you're going to like the way he approaches the head coaching job. But we shall see. But there you go. Good stuff there from my man Patrick for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We're going to talk on some more NBA. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk old school NBA. We'll go back. We'll tap the flux of Pastor, jump into the DeLorean, and go back to like 1988 to talk about one of MJ's most iconic seasons. It turns out it may have been a little disingenuous. Just a tad. We'll talk about why that is the case. But first, and we'll also get Raj Rant. And Raj Rant will discuss sack avoidance. Can't really come up with a statistical metric to measure sack avoidance. But there are a lot of other different analytical models that you can use to at least give you clarity on who's really good at sack avoidance. So we'll talk about that in Rod's Rant of the day. We'll also get a Rangers report coming up for you. So if we don't have time for the rant, we'll push it to next segment and get your Rangers report. And also, I want to play that Adam Schefter sound. Adam Schefter is somewhat agreeing with Patrick's take yesterday about Trevor Lawrence. Now, basically, his new contract could end up being the floor for a lot of contract negotiations and extensions. So we'll play that audio and talk about the quarterback position. But first, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Lakers finally found their coach, hiring JJ Redick to a 4-year contract. The 39-year-old Redick finished a 15-year playing career in 2021 and has been a broadcaster and podcast host in the years since. The hiring of a former player with no coaching experience as a head coach has had mixed results, with some of the previous hires including Steve Nash, Derek Fisher, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, and more. The Lakers will now work to surround Redick with an experienced assistant coaching staff. Also in the NBA, the Thunder and Bulls completed a trade with Chicago sending Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. The former 6th overall pick Giddey, who is only 21, struggled to find playing time during the playoffs, and a Thunder team stacked with young talent. And the Bulls hope to utilize his playmaking ability more with their roster of offensive threats. The 30-year-old Caruso has made an all-defensive team in the last 2 seasons and is thought of as one of the best role players in the league. With Caruso due a new contract after the season, the Thunder will have to decide if they value his contributions long-term. In Major League Baseball, the Astros picked up a 5-3 victory over the White Sox yesterday and won the series 2-1. Yordan Alvarez crushed a homer in the first inning and then contributed another RBI as part of the Astros' 7th inning 4-run rally to regain the lead. Spencer Arrighetti was pulled in the 5th inning, giving up 2 runs, but the bullpen was able to hold out and get the Astros a much-needed win. They will now head into a series with an Orioles team that holds the second-best record in the AL. And the Rangers will begin a series with the Royals today, sending Nathan Eovaldi to the mound, trying to turn around a disappointing June for the club, who has gone 7-10 so far this month. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate that as always. Let's get right to this Michael Jordan story because it's fascinating. So, for those who haven't read it, go check out Tom Haberstroh's Twitter account. It's up there, but it's at Yahoo Sports. Really cool article. Essentially, they're looking at Michael Jordan's iconic, epic 87-88 season, where he became the first player ever to win the scoring title and win Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. Now, this was after that 86-87 season where MJ became the first player in NBA history to register at least 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season. After that season, because he was left off of the he basically felt he was disrespected that season, thought he should have been won the Defensive Player of the Year award that year, but I believe Michael Cooper won it. And his response, at least one of the interviews he had around that time about Michael Cooper winning the award, he said, Michael Cooper is great at ball denial, but check his other stats. The league gives defensive awards on reputation. It just teased me off. So MJ was not happy about him winning that award over him. And so this article points out that the next season, MJ was obsessed with winning Defensive Player of the Year, and he was making it publicly known to anybody. Any interviews like, hey, I'm trying to win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm focusing on getting steals, getting blocks. That's one of his goals. When he was asked by the Chicago Tribune that offseason about it, the offseason after he won the Defensive Player of the Year, he said, I knew I was close, and I asked to find out, what the records were. He said, and when I was on the roll, I was going for it. I was reaching for everything. And into that season, he had 259 steals in that 87-88 season, and he led all guards with 131 blocks. The next highest total for a guard in blocks was Alvin Robinson, San Antonio guard Alvin Robinson, and he had 69 that season. Nice. So at the end of the season, per game totals for MJ, averaging 3.2 steals and 1.6 blocks. Is what he was averaging. The eye-popping stats, of course, they led to MJ winning Defensive Player of the Year. So one of the parts of the article, and it's pretty long, it's 6,000 words. They talk about this man, Alex Rucker. He was a statistician for the Vancouver Grizzlies in the 90s. And he claims in his article that basically they were responsible for home scorekeeping in the 90s. And he said basically this was common practice across all of the NBA. Everybody was doing home. So basically you were doing scorekeeping of the home games. Okay. And then the other team, they would keep up with their home games. So everybody had their own stats, but basically you had home game stats for everybody. And that's how it worked out. And he claims that even though he first introduced to the industry, he was prioritizing accuracy and integrity and honesty. He said he was told, I'll read the excerpt. He said, but then they reviewed a video clip of John Stockton getting an assist on a Karl Malone bucket. And he said things got weird. There was no casual connection between the pass and the basket. He told, and I believe this is on a podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out. He said, and the majority opinion by a mile was, oh no, that's definitely an assist. And he was the only one like, I don't know if that's an assist, guys. Technically, by the definition, that's not an assist. They were like, it's an assist. And he said, according to Rucker, the scorekeepers told him in no uncertain terms that it was an assist because it was John freaking Stockton. That's why it's an assist. Rucker soon realized what was expected. In Rucker's view, it was inferred that part of the scorekeeper's job was to give hometown stars star treatment. He said, quote, I left there clearly understanding that, yes, we are supposed to present the most accurate representation that we can, but the NBA is also an entertainment business, and it's up to us in very small part as statisticians to support or reinforce stars and excitement and fun. And that message was definitely reinforced internally with the Grizzlies. So keep that in mind. All right. So he's saying common practice to inflate stats, especially home scorekeeping in the 90s. So now let's fast forward to, and here's another stat for you about that. Tom Haberstroh claims that in his research that home teams in the 80s and the 90s annually registered about 800 more blocks and about 450 more steals than the road team league-wide. This is a basketball reference stat. He said over time, though, in the Adam Silver era, now that we have all these technological advancements, right, we can track stuff real-time data. He said that this past season, there were just 135 more blocks at home than on the road and a measly 13 more steals league-wide at home than on the road. So now we don't have to worry about that. They're way more accurate than they used to be. So now let's fast forward to MJ's era and how this affected MJ. So according to this research, and they did research like box scores and also some film study. They found out that Jordan averaged a mind-boggling 4 steals and 2.1 blocks at home. But on the road, those numbers shrunk, almost cut in half. He went from 4 steals average on the road to 2.1 steals at home. He went from averaging 2.1 blocks at home, to 1.2 blocks on the road. So 4 steals, 2.1 blocks at home, but on the road, those numbers cut in half, 2.1 steals, 1.2 blocks. He said when they broke it down into per 36 minutes to try to get a more accurate portrayal of the discrepancy. Jordan's combined blocks and steals, the stocks numbers, were a whopping 82% higher at home than on the road. It went on to say dating back to 1982-83, when the award Defensive Player of the Year was established, Jordan's home versus away disparity in combined blocks and steals stocks represents the largest discrepancy of any Defensive Player of the Year award winner in NBA history. No other instance in the award's history has a player shown a disparity that touched 160%, except for Michael Jordan's 87-88 season, where the discrepancy rate was 182%. Patrick, 182% discrepancy. According to StatHead, Jordan posted 165 steals at home. That was the most in the NBA, compared to just 94 on the road, tied for 4th. The gap of 71 steals blew away the competition, with the next largest gap among the top 15 league leaders in steals being 47. It says also Jordan finished with the most steals at 259. Alvin Robertson had 243, so he probably would have passed up MJ if not for some of these inflated stats. It went on to say Jordan's 84 blocks at home ranked 8th most in the league that year, a highly unusual place for a guard. On the road, his total of 47 blocks dropped down all the way to tie for 21st overall. So I mean, it's got a, like I said, it's got a number, some other stats that we can share for you, but for the most part, it basically says that 30% of Jordan's steals and blocks from that magical 87-88 season, based on his film study and based on his statistical analysis, 30% of them are fraudulent. They just made them up, Patrick. 30% of his steals and blocks from that season.
Yeah, and
that's wild.
And what's funny, so this was reportedly more commonplace back in the day, and it's always been, the less footage of it there is, the more the stats are going to be disputed. And then you throw in the fact of back in the day, there was no internet, there was no live stat keeping. If you were keeping live stats, it was you doing it. And, the video wasn't as good. You weren't getting high quality, so you couldn't tell. And there's no replay. So if you watch a play and you think, well, was that a steal or was that just a turnover? Well, I'm just going to mark it because it was what it was. You can't go back and go through it. And nowadays they'll even go back and fix stats the next day because now there's tons of money in stats. Yeah. Like fantasy has made stats a huge thing. Like if they try to do what they do now, it would be a huge problem because Vegas would come after these statisticians and be like, hey, we just noticed you blew our over-under by like 4 fields. Exactly. What was that about? Why is there a statistical anomaly in this? So you couldn't do now what you did then, but it's the best kind of cheating because it didn't really affect the end game. But it's just funny to me in the MJ legacy about things that people get criticized for and not being a team player. Can you imagine if a player came out now and said, no, I just went for everything instead of playing the best defense, and I just did everything to get my own personal gains because I wanted to win this award? So I didn't really care about, if the other guy, if he scores 2 points, I don't care. I'm trying to get a steal. I need to get the stat. So the stats is how I'm going to win this award. If you said that now, people lose their minds that you're the most selfish, how you can never win a championship player. Right. And this, by the way, this is 2-3 years before he wins. It's 88, 89, right?
Yeah, this is before the title run. This is when he's getting
First
whipped
title
by
is
the
91,
Celtics
I
and stuff.
believe.
Yeah.
So I think they
Yeah.
went 91 to 93, 91 to 94, 91, 92, 93, like 95, 96, 97, or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right about that. That 2 year gap.
Or 96, 97, 98.
Mhm.
I think was where it was. But if we sit there and go, those are the titles. So this is before that, but you get so much flack for that. And now it's just
You're
part
right.
of, oh, MJ, you were just trying to pad stats about, and then you weren't even padding them really because then the statisticians padded them for you.
They did.
But a lot of this comes up in the world of where Michael Jordan just gets, for some reason, a pass for everything ever because
Yeah, he
he's
does.
Michael Jordan. And
Yeah,
I
he
get
does.
it. And for the NBA, if you're the NBA, if you're an NBA fan, you have to love Michael and the fact that he made the game, bigger. He made it so that it is what it can be today and be on TV all the time and you can get all the information about it. It may not be that without Michael Jordan. So it's no flag to him. I've just never understood. I've never understood this belief that Michael Jordan was so much better than everybody else in the league that it was never even close. And this just further proves, no, look, he was really, really good, but the Bulls team was built really well around him. It was perfectly. Phil Jackson's a really good coach. They had a good system. And he, because he's the greatest, not saying he's not the greatest, but because he's the greatest, was able to achieve great things. But it's not like the gap between number one and number two is as far as some people try to make it out, that there's number one, and then over there 6 blocks away is number two. It's not that. It's not that far. Michael Jordan, a great basketball player, but it's not like he's number one, and then there's everybody else who's ever played the game. Anyone else touch a basketball would be lucky to be half as good as Michael Jordan.
But no, you're right though. It's like but these stats would oftentimes in the new era that we live in, where we're arguing on social media about MJ and LeBron. These are some of the stats that they've pulled out to help prove their case about why MJ is so much better than LeBron. And now you're starting to see some of that mythology, right? Be shattered. And here's something else too, because they have apparently there's one of the famous games from MJ is the 10 steal game. He had a game where he had 10 steals. And Tom Haberstroh says that he went and looked at the 4-minute highlight reel of his 10 steal game, and he said it only counted 6. Even in like the innovator that like, man, we only counted 6 of those steals. And he actually looked at he went back and found 6 games from 1988. Well, sorry, 5 from 88 and 1 from 87.
Yeah.
So he found 6 games, and he says basically in these 6 games, what he's finding, sometimes they're counting dead ball turnovers as like steals, even though it actually can't be a steal. A dead ball turnover can't be a steal, but they're counting them as steals sometimes. And he says, in all, by their count, in those games, the 6 games he watched, the box scores indicate that Jordan had 28 total steals. He said after they watched them and documented it, they only counted 12. So 16 extra steals in 6 games. Damn, that's a lot. That's a huge number, man. It's added three extra steals a game.
Yeah.
What the hell, dude? That's crazy. But to your point, he also brings up that back in the day, old heads, I'm talking about in the Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain days, they would basically be accusing the other side. They're basically accusing the other team, the opposing team, of inflating the big man's numbers. Like basically Wilt Chamberlain's people were accusing Bill Russell's team of inflating his numbers, and vice versa. Because they said they looked at the 26 games between Russell and Wilt Chamberlain where they averaged 40 plus rebounds. And they couldn't find video footage, of course, way back in the day. But they looked at the stat sheets, and they said none of the 26 games were tabulated on the road. They were all at home. But he had 40 plus rebounds. It's like, I mean, that tracks to what they're saying, kind of what you brought up too. They also looked at Nick Van Exel's 23 assist game. And they said you can actually watch it on YouTube. They counted of the 23 assists, they counted 17. He said maybe 15, actually. He said generously, I'll give him 17, but it's probably more like 15 if you're being really strict. They looked at Shaq's 15 block game from 1993. They counted 10 blocks. They looked at the Toronto Raptors had a 23 block night in 2001. So they counted 17. So even after that era, it was still it's just it's pretty lazy, I think, more than anything. It's just lazy, and then it's like your interpretation of what a block is.
At the end of the day,
off,
most of the time, what you got for a long time was you would pull out the newspaper in the morning and you would look, and the paper would say, this is what happened. Here's the box score.
I remember that.
And I would go through, because I remember I used to look at box scores when I first started doing stuff. You know, when I was first starting to write articles about the NBA, you couldn't get everything online at the time. It was the beginning of the internet, so it wasn't coming. So you still have to get the paper the next day and go through to get all the box scores from all these games. And God forbid if it was a late game and it would be in the next day's paper and you're trying to write something, you have to be like, well, I don't know how many points Sean Kemp had. He plays in Seattle. But
that's crazy, but you're so right, man. Think how hard it was to be a journalist back in the day, man. It's tough. You're really working hard, man, for real.
And so you would have, so those stats are easily, if you get the paper, and then maybe the paper even puts in the stats wrong, and they get recorded ever.
Yep.
That you get a guy at a hometown paper at the Boston Globe, and he goes, well, Bill Russell had what? 5, 5, and 6? No, he didn't. That clearly they're giving those stats to somebody else. And all right, no, he had 9, 10, and 14. All right, now that looks like a Bill Russell.
That looks a little better.
And so like that stuff can happen throughout times as someone just decides to make the numbers look better. At the end of the day, the numbers didn't matter then. Now they matter a lot more because of gambling. But
right.
you know, out of all the cheating I can think of in all the sports and all the things you hear that are done, this is somewhat of the most innocent. I'm sure the person who loses out on Defensive Player of the Year would think differently, but for most part, this is some of the most innocent cheating you will find.
You're not wrong about that, and the fact that, like you said, it was so widespread. It'd be different if it was like one specific isolated example of this team was doing it and nobody else was doing it. It's like no, everybody was pretty much doing it in their own way. Maybe not to the point where MJ was getting 3 extra damn steals a game, which is just insane. But I get and it kind of reminds me of that. It's a great quote from the movie The Man Who Shot Liberty Vance. You haven't seen this worth, it's a good movie. But the most famous quote for it is, when legend becomes fact, print the legend.
Yes.
This is probably one of the best examples of it. It's just not MJ is that in a nutshell. MJ is when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. That's his entire career, pretty much. I mean, like I said, MJ is so beloved. Yes. Take this whole stuff out of it. Just take this out of it. He is so beloved that he wore a Hitler stash on a commercial. And we act like it never happened. And we act like MJ was so unaware that it was a Hitler stash. He knew it was a Hitler stash. It's been a Hitler stash since Hitler wore it way back in the day. And we decided that he is such a disgusting, abominable, deplorable human being that we won't name a kid Adolf again, and we won't ever wear that ugly ass mustache style again.
No, but Michael Jordan did it while selling underwear on a plane. And I don't know how, but all those things I just said are true.
He did. It was like it was underwear. I was like, does he have a Hitler stash?
He has a Hitler stash selling underwear, and it was, if I'm not wrong, it was on a plane. The commercials were like, someone's like, "Are you Michael Jordan?" Like,
yes.
Hey, are you Michael Jordan? Are you Bizarro Evil Michael Jordan?
The Bizarro Evil. Hold on, is that commercial still available on YouTube, or did Michael get it like taken down?
I don't know.
I'm gonna see if I'm gonna type it in right now and see if Michael Jordan Hitler stash commercial comes up. I'm serious. Because that's what it's known as, Hitler.
It is.
Stash. Oh, no, I think it's gone, man.
Oh, he got rid of it. Mike's got that kind of money.
Him and Nike might have worked. Oh, Hitler stash. Oh, no, see, that's a whole video about somebody saying, don't forget MJ. Yeah, because then there's a Joe Rogan video about it. So thank God people are not forgetting that MJ once wore a Hitler stash. I can't find the commercial, though. I just found it.
Oh, okay, found it.
It's somebody recording the commercial, but it's not the actual YouTube commercial because they took that down.
They got rid of that.
He's a billionaire now, so he got some pull
money. Yeah,
he got some real money.
He definitely falls into that. Like I've seen posts, and we gotta stop talking about this on the show because every time my timeline will then just pop up 40 things of LeBron fans hating MJ and MJ fans hating LeBron, and it's just and they're so petty. It's so petty. Like the one I saw recently was Bronny and Bryce James sitting wearing Jordans, and they're like, "If this doesn't settle the debate," like, "What? He makes better shoes?" Seriously, man, y'all need to get a life. Like I talk about sports all the time. Seriously, this is sad at this point. Some of y'all trying to find things.
No, you're right about that. The Michael Jordan and LeBron debate, I always call it like an Ouroboros. I think that's the term for that snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
That's how that argument feels to me every time. I feel like we never get anywhere with it. I feel like LeBron people stay LeBron people, and you never convert anybody. It's like politics. You're not converting anybody.
Exactly.
They're stuck in their ways. You argue with this person trying to convert them to your belief. It ain't happening. They believe what they believe.
Look, we just know Tim Duncan was the best. Just stop arguing.
Exactly. See, and then you come in, and somebody else comes in from the side. Like, actually, Y'all looked at Kobe and I'm like, okay, you know what?
No, the Kobe, and then it'll be then you'll get an old head in there and be like, well, Wilt came in there.
Y'all know what about Big O? You know about Big O? Like, okay, you know what? We're done here. But remember the MJ LeBron debate. I'm not making this up. There have been multiple reports about fans stabbing and assaulting one another over this MJ LeBron argument.
No, it's crazy.
Have you seen these stories?
No, it's crazy.
I'm not making it up. You can go just Google it. They'll be like literally, there were friends who got into an MJ LeBron debate and ended up getting into a fight.
Because
it's like,
you just said it. It's like politics. You can yell and you go, I have assembled this giant case set out in front of me, and the other person goes, none of that matters. I'm not listening.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can make the case for both of them, and both of them why they're not, and both of them why they are. You can make that case. It's literally, it's a sport. You're supposed to watch it and enjoy it, and then walk away from it and go, wow, I enjoyed that. How lucky are we that we live in an era that we get to see Michael Jordan and LeBron James? I feel lucky that I've got to watch both of them play basketball. I've covered both of them. I've seen them both live several times. I feel very lucky to have that. Why could I not just live that life? I have to pick a side in this. I don't care. I don't like either one of them. Neither one of them played for the Spurs. I don't like neither of them.
I feel you on that. But here's the story. It's from 2013. Sports fans got into a heated discussion over a recent debate over Michael Jordan and LeBron, and there was a stabbing in Pittsburgh. All 3 victims were expected to be fine. There were 3 victims.
Wait.
3 people got stabbed. So somebody brought up another person.
What year was this?
2013.
That's
it wasn't even recent.
Ago.
It was 10 years ago. It wasn't even a good debate then. Back then, it was like, of course it's MJ. Who the hell gets stabbed over an MJ LeBron debate in 2013? It's like, it was clearly MJ then. Now you may be arguing. I mean, come on, 2013.
2013. He was not even. He was slated to surpass, but he had to play into his 40s. That was never going to happen.
He hadn't even beaten the Warriors yet. We hadn't had the Warriors dynasty yet. Anything?
No.
Come on.
That's not even a Laker, LeBron.
I didn't realize it was that long ago. Dude, you see, that goes to your point, though. Why are you arguing that definitively? Why are you that passionate about it in 2013, dude?
Oh.
He's not even, he wasn't even in the conversation. It shouldn't even been a debate.
I'm so curious of in 20 years, if we're going to sit here and it's still going to be Jordan is the guy, or if it's going to change. And they'll be like, listen, old head, shut up. Jordan, he played when all the people then weighed 750 pounds. They were all 3'2". No one knew how to play basketball.
It'd be like that debate about Babe Ruth now in baseball.
Yeah,
like,
I'm just
he
curious.
was playing against painters. It wasn't even, they hadn't even, they haven't even integrated the league yet, that kind of stuff.
No, exactly. Like, it's like Jerry West. People will be like, Jerry West, I don't know, man. I don't know how good. So that conversation, you just 20, 30 years, if LeBron somehow gets past him, the difference was they played against each other. They were in the league at the same time.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So there was a little bit of a difference in there, but I'm wondering how much it'll change the narrative.
I found another one from 2015. It says, Michael Jordan versus LeBron James argument turns violent. Man charged with aggravated assault. Says an argument over whether MJ is a better basketball player than LeBron James led to one man arrested and charged with felony aggravated assault. This was also in Pennsylvania. And this was 2 years later, guys.
What are y'all doing in Pennsylvania fighting about this?
I don't know what. 2013, there was a stabbing in Pittsburgh.
Well, I hope the guy who stabbed them all was saying Dr. J. Come on, say Dr. J.
Maybe that's why it's in Pennsylvania. If you arguing, picking up Dr. J. It was Daniel Mondelez was arguing with his roommate about who is better, Jordan or James. The argument turned physical. Police said Mondelez was also charged with making terrorist threats and simple assaults.
Sarah says, y'all don't even know about Moses Malone.
Yeah, what is going on up there in Pennsylvania? Mondelez was told not to return to the apartment where the first incident occurred. Reports say that don't say which player Mondelez was intensely arguing for, but he was told not to return to the apartment. But police were called again Saturday night. Hold up. 2 incidents, Patrick. They were called again Saturday night when Mondelez became argumentative with 2 women and refused to leave the apartment. They said they don't know whether he was arguing with the women about LeBron James and Michael Jordan. This guy just likes to argue. Man. 2 separate. There's no better. I don't know if there's a better debate in NBA history than the LeBron MJ debate. I mean, is there a better one?
I mean, there's ones that are way more fun to have.
Yes, true. But do any of them incite the passion or people are stabbing other people?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Goodness.
I
All
would
right.
like to add in one thing to wrap up the conversation, just to piss everybody off too. Steals don't mean you're a good defensive player. Steals usually
because
mean you're a lazy
that's
defensive
the point.
player. They usually
No, you're right about that. You're right
Just-
about that.
just-
Because Luca has a lot of steals.
you look at a lot of steals. Allen Iverson led the league in steals a lot of times.
Steph Curry. Steph used to have a lot of steals
Yeah.
too.
It's a lazy
Yeah.
way to play defense. You say I'm gonna foul, get the steal, but I ain't moving my feet. I ain't playing. I'm gonna play passing lanes. I ain't doing it, but I ain't playing hard. Just set down, lock down defense. I'm gonna try and get the stats. The stats are what people want to see, and then I don't have to play defense. Yeah, it's it's an important part of the game. They're good, but they're way overrated when you're deciding who the best defensive player in the league is.
And then MJ was hating on Cooper, saying he's all about ball tonight. It's like, yeah, because he's working, moving his feet a lot. You're just
They
trying to
don't
get the steal.
score.
Yeah.
How many
It's
points
like-
did you allow?
That's a good point. That's a good point. You're right about that. Because I often see steals by players who have a reputation for not being good players. And they'll be like, I got a lot of steals, though. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
All
not
right.
effort. It's not effort.
Is that all right? Good stuff there. We'll come back. We'll have the Range Report and Raj Rant. We'll do them both simultaneously back to back. We'll do that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Mohorn Rod Babies. Coming back on the Horn. All right, thanks, Patrick. Time to get to our Rangers report by Texas Truck and Trailer. So we got a couple of nuggets here. Our Rangers were off yesterday, and I believe today they're going to start up a series with the Royals. Excuse me, tonight in a series with Bobby Witt Jr. The Rangers start up a series with Bobby Witt Jr. and the Royals. That'll be 7:05 with Nathan Eovaldi on the hill for Texas. The big conversation happening among Rangers fans is obviously about Max Scherzer. The questions about when he's going to return. Bruce Bochy, the manager, he was saying that basically this weekend was a bit premature for Max Scherzer's return. He didn't say basically Saturday would make a lot of sense. Though John Gray would be on normal rest and ready to go, Scherzer would be on 6 days rest. Bochy said, and maybe the Rangers want to give Gray an extra day. But Nathan Eovaldi, as we talked about, he's going to start tonight. Scherzer is pitching this weekend, and we'll take with him to the mound just some uncertainty about, recovering from an injury at the age he is. Was he 39 years old, something like that? 7 months removed from back surgery and now having the nerve issue in his thumb. I mean, Father Time is undefeated for a reason, and so he's got to deal with that. So that's the reason why I think they are reluctant to be really specific on the timeline. His rehab appearances probably rated as inconclusive right now. There's a lot of good. You had 13 strikeouts and 8 2/3 innings for Round Rock for the Express. He was likely working on, they said, some other stuff, trying to build up his pitch count. So they say it probably could have even been more impressive, but he was probably working on some individual things. Scherzer could throw 100 pitches if the Rangers let him take it that far. The Royals also, the Rangers took 2 of 3, remember, from them in May. That was the series when Wyatt Langford injured his hamstring. Speaking of injuries. So there you go. I mean, that is a couple of notes from the Rangers. Also, I saw this from SIS, Sports Info Solutions, about the Rangers defense. They were ranking basically the squads, the Major League Baseball squads, who are the best at turning grounders and bunts into outs. Rangers at the top of this list. By the way, Rangers followed by the Mariners, Dodgers, and the Orioles. Actually, Royals are top 5 in this too. So you'll have a meeting between those squads this weekend, between defense that are are best in the majors at turning grounders and bunts into outs. So there you go. There's some notes on the Rangers starting up their series tonight versus the Royals. All right, that is a Rangers report brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer. All right, you guys know I'm a big advocate of sack avoidance in terms of the overall evaluation of quarterbacks. I want a quarterback that can avoid sacks, extend the play, and there's not a true metric or stat about sack avoidance. I know somebody one day, some really smart person is going to come up with it. I'm not smart enough to do that, but there are several metrics that will give you a better idea, give you clarity on if a quarterback at least has negative tendencies, or if they have some elite skill or trait in regards to how they handle pressure. And the best ones right now are pressure to sack percentage, pressure to sack rate, as they call it, and self sacks and self pressures. These are sacks and pressure attributed to the quarterback. So take the O-line out of it, take your running back who may be pass protecting out of it. We're taking all those elements out of it. These are just sacks and pressures who are attributed to the QB, right? And then there's pressure to sack rate, and that is how often you are sacked compared to how much you are pressured. And I've been saying for a long time, this is based on the eye test. So I like to get metrics because see if the metrics that match my eye test. I consider myself a football theorist. So I like to be able to watch football. Even Patrick was talking about the eye test of basketball. I like to be able to watch it first and then go to the stats and see if the stats match up with my eyes and what I think. And I've been telling you guys for a while, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league at sack avoidance. Nobody's close to this dude. So you can't even touch him half the time. And it's so rare for him to have a self-sack, a sack that he could have avoided as a quarterback. So we look at pressure to sack percentage, pressure to sack rate. Patrick Mahomes is second. So it does kind of match my eye test. Who's first? Josh Allen. His pressure to sack percentage 9.9%. Patrick Mahomes is 12.2% pressure to sack rate. Where's Dak Prescott on the pressure to sack percentage? He's middle of the road. He's average. So there's nothing wrong with Dak's ability to handle pressure. He's 18.6%. CJ Stroud is also right there in the kind of the middle averages, if you will. He's at CJ Stroud's at 19.5%. That's not great, but it's not terrible either. But Josh Allen, he's probably the second best quarterback in sack avoidance in the NFL, in my opinion, behind Mahomes. This specific stat says he's better than Mahomes. That's pressure to sack rate. We look at self sacks and self pressures. That's the sacks and pressures attributed to the quarterback. Patrick Mahomes leads the NFL. And self sacks allowed per self pressure, or own pressure, as they call it, 12.7%. Justin Herbert is second at 16.6%. Joe Flacco at 20% is third. Kyler Murray at 23% is fourth. And Josh Allen at 20, actually he's tied with Kyler Murray at 23%. So Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are your best quarterbacks in the NFL at sack avoidance based on the metrics. Also, that matches my eye test. I would have put them in as the top two with just the eye test alone. But looking at self sacks and self pressures, where is CJ Stroud? He's actually sixth worst in self sacks and self pressures. I wonder how much of that is, first of all, having a terrible O-line, it's all the injuries that he had, and having, just say obviously a rookie year and the unfamiliarity with the system and getting acclimated to a new system. I'd expect CJ Stroud to improve in that category this upcoming season. But as you know, there's still ways for you to be an efficient quarterback, even though you may allow a lot of sacks and pressures. Joe Burrow is famous for it too. But if you can take a sack on first down or second down and still be able to convert a third and long or convert a second and long, which is one of the hardest things to do in football. But if you can do that, then it shows you like, okay, you can get yourself out of that situation. It doesn't kill the series, it doesn't kill the drive, because you can get your team out of that negative situation, that disadvantageous situation. Dak Prescott, he's also toward the bottom. He's probably in the bottom 10 here when it comes to self sacks and self pressures. He's at 41.6% on sacks allowed per own pressure. So, and I'll throw this out too, because pressure to sack percentage, pressure to sack rate is probably the most popular stat in trying to determine sack avoidance right now in the NFL, because they believe they can track it from college, and they believe it translates. The college number translates pretty accurately to the NFL. Gave these numbers before. Patrick Mahomes in college, pressure to sack rate 11.3, 11.1 in the NFL. Same thing with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, he's at 16.3% pressure to sack rate in college, 13.3% in the NFL. Jared Goff, 15.2% in college, 14.7% in the NFL. You get it. So I think it translates really well. And that's kind of what we said about Quinn Ewers, why he's got to clean up his pressure to sack rate, because those NFL scouts are looking at that, and they're looking at his pressure to sack rate around 25% and think to themselves, well, that would put you in the lower bottom half, or at least the bottom third of the league in that percentage. But if you have your pressure to sack numbers from your 2022 season, that would put you toward the top 10 in the NFL in sack avoidance. Very different. You got to figure that out. All right, there you go. Sack avoidance, and trying to put some statistical metrics actually that can help you prove, or to help you clarify and identify what sack avoidance is. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up, put it in the oven. We'll play Who Said That? That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio, and based on the context clues, based on the familiarity, you can recall the voice. You're supposed to identify who said that. We'll do that on the other side right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a 512 Friday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams from local bands and artists that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Very talented human beings. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Thunder Rosa, and they are playing Saturday at Giddy Ups.
Man, the stuff that comes across, you basically can't open up Twitter in public anymore.
No,
Like you can't open it up like in front of respectable people anymore because ain't no telling what's going to be on your timeline when you open it up. And then people just think you're a degenerate.
Why are they commenting on your thing? Oh,
yeah, it's like I didn't like this. I don't even follow these people, but it's like you put it up on there and it just comes up, and sometimes it's some wild stuff. Like, have you heard of this? I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm just going to say the term that's kind of floating around that's going viral, and you can go find the video for yourself. The Haktua girl.
I just saw that.
Just saw it. You can't open up this damn app anywhere. I mean, telling you, it's becoming more and more degenerate by the day.
Yes.
Go look at. I'm not going to describe it or what it is. Go look it up, and then you'll figure it out, and you'll probably be either amazed, disgusted, or impressed. I don't even know which one. Maybe all three.
Maybe all three.
All three. I'm just glad they ain't my daughter. But one day it could be. That's what I'm upset about too. Like, damn it, one day that could be. I could be putting up my damn timeline to see my daughter going viral and trending for the wrong damn reasons. And I'm sure her dad is looking up and going, damn.
Her dad ain't around.
Yeah. She does seem like she's got some daddy issues. I will say that. Which is honestly, back in my day, those were the women that I really liked. The women with daddy issues. They were some of my favorites. Okay, let's get to Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond. And based on that audio or based on the familiarity of the voice, hopefully you can recall, or some context clues will help you identify who said that.
Yeah, difference.
What would be a difference?
You know, Spo is like a savant, a basketball savant.
Yeah.
Like he's basketball.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I'll talk to Spo about other stuff, and it's cool, but like Pop is like the most like personable guy.
Really?
I'm telling you, we almost started following him around because he got a rule: if he see you out at dinner on a road trip, he pay for it.
Yeah, I heard that.
I'm at dinner with Gorgie one night because I didn't know the rule. It's me, Gorgie, and KJ, Keldon Johnson.
Okay.
So we sitting at dinner, and I see Gorgie look up, look past me. We're facing each other. I see him look up. He goes, "Oh, hell yeah." I'm like,
Damn it, man.
I'm like, what? He like, bro, there go Pop right there. He just walked in. We good tonight.
That is great. Do they order more stuff when they see Pop? Like, oh, Pop's here. Let's go. There's more drinks. Rounds.
Bottle of wine. We good. Pop's here. Yeah, that's Josh Richardson on the OGs podcast talking about the difference between Spo and Pop. And Pop, the learned rule that if he sees you at a restaurant, he's paying.
Damn, I love that rule. And because it's basically like anywhere like the city, right? You guys are out. So they probably go to like the same spots all the time, right?
So you kind of know where it is. And no, that's what, there's always been stories of people like Matt Bonner was one that would be like, I know where Pop likes to go. And so you just try and go to that place and you hope.
You try to go there and just like, hey, what's up, Pop? How you doing? Man, he buys it every time. That's a classy act.
Yeah, he makes a lot of money and he knows how he gets there. It's because of players.
Yeah, and I mean, and like people telling stories about you though forever about how cool you were and that kind of thing. There you go, another great story about Pop. That's the reason he's a made man and a legend. You're also a made man and a legend, Patrick. We appreciate you, brother. Your great work each and every day here on the show. We appreciate all you guys for listening. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. And until next time, same place, same channel. Hook 'em and peace.